Both teams are focusing really, really hard on their AoE stuns and damage. They both have some incredible team fight potential with an emphasis on knocking out at least one person in this particular game. You're going to see combos like Doom Razor, which is basically just a mid game. We're going to run at one person. It's going to be your carrier, your mid. We're going to take them out of the game no matter what, and then snowball on the rest of your team. What doing this does, by picking these heroes that have this kind of CC and ability at all points in the game, because there's never going to be a point, it doesn't matter if you have BKB or Lincolns or anything like that, there is never going to be a point where Doom and Razor won't be able to outplay your carry or your mid. And it's these powerful combinations that you guys got to think about when making drafts work. It's not the thing that a lot of people get caught up with, especially below 6k MMR, is the lanes. Everyone wants a perfect lane. Everyone wants an easy lane. Nobody wants to pick first and get counterpicked, because then they're just going to end up having a much worse impact than they could have most of the time. And that's fine in pubs, but you need to remember that this game is designed around 5 players. And in order to maximize your effectiveness, you don't necessarily want to just draft for the lane. It's great to win your lanes. It's super important. And quite frankly, Vici should have had an automatic win just because of their lanes. I think they outdrafted EG really, really hard. But the team fight combo and the potential for plays that EG had in this particular game brought them back just purely because of the execution. So just looking at this draft combo, you see Doom Tiny being picked up. It's AoE CC on the Tiny, it's gank potential, it's lanes, it's also a flex pick. You can put the Tiny in any position right now. It's one of the strongest picks right now in Team Dota, is this Tiny. Because you can put him in position 1, you can put him in position 2, you can put him in position 3. He could be a roaming 4 even. Basically 5 is the only thing that Tiny's locked out of. But right now, Tiny is just such an insane pick early on for that reason, that you can just put him anywhere and it doesn't reveal anything about your draft. And that's super important, especially when the hero gives you so much, like AoE CC, 2 cancels, tons of damage, a flexible build. You can make him an initiator, you can make him a damage dealer, you can make him all this kind of stuff. So keeping those picks in your pockets and making sure that you can play very flexible heroes, and that multiple people on your team can play these flexible heroes, is so important. You need to be able to kind of coordinate with people and say, all right, I want to pick a flex pick. Maybe it's an early Legion Commander or an early Tiny or something like that, that we can move around if we need to. It enables your draft so much, because what that does is it, gives you okay, if instead of Sven, maybe EG picked up the Gyrocopter, for example, this is a Tiny, they haven't picked the mid, Vici has last pick, and they last pick Brood. Well, if your mid is really crappy versus Brood, let's say, like a Linas or a Shadow Fiend or something like that, all you have to do is put the Tiny mid, and then the Shadow Fiend assumes whatever role is available to him, and your draft is saved. There's no more of these kind of last picks that just bone you. If you can play these flexible heroes that offer a lot to your draft, it's so huge and it's so useful, especially when you get up into kind of high levels of drafting and high level Dota, where people actually know how to draft and know how to counterpick you and know how to take over a game. So by picking up a Tiny 4 or just an early Tiny in these drafts, it allows you to play around huge aha I got you picks later into the game. And to some extent, the Doom Razor, which they're going to pick, does the exact same thing. Because even if there's a last pick that is just totally dismantling to your entire draft, as long as you have these particular heroes, like a Doom or a Tiny or Razor, that allows you to just target one hero and completely take them out of the game, then it doesn't matter. These aha got you last picks that stomp your games in pubs like a Meepo or Broodmother or what have you, they don't have the same effect anymore. So, and especially when you don't have last pick, it's very important to pick a mid that has more to do with your team and that'll give you more impact throughout the game rather than the lane. Because you can't pick a mid when you don't have last pick that will win the lane. It's going to get counterpicked if your opponent's actually care to do that at all. And 99% of your games, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to get counterpicked on mid if you don't have last pick. So the most important thing you can do with this last pick on Evil Geniuses is pick something that synergizes with the rest of your heroes, something that can offer things in team fights rather than the lane. Because what you're gonna see is Razor gets counterpicked by like the only pick that can actually counter him, and he just gets destroyed. He dies like 5 times in the first 10 minutes or something absurd, just over and over again dying in lane. But the theory behind this particular pick, this Razor pick, is the reason why it's so good here, is that even though he got destroyed in the lane, because he can play around the rest of his team, he has more impact than the Queen of Pain does, basically. And so when you're drafting these roles, when you're drafting these kinds of lineups, what you want to take into account, especially when you're in the position of first pick, is what is going to go best with my team? What does my team need? When I see these 4 heroes on the Dire, this Gyro, this Legion, this CM, this ET, and I understand that I have Initiation with Tiny, I have a Sven who can carry late game, I have Lich who benefits from people being able to just run at other people, and Lich wants to sit back essentially, and Doom is the Initiation that's going to take out one person. What else do we need? We need more damage, we need more magical damage, we need a way to continually lock down people, because this gyrocopter is going to be a huge issue for the Doom and Tiny. And so what they decided on was a Razor, and I'm a really, really big fan of that. I think it was a phenomenal pick, even if they don't have last pick. So when you're drafting, you need to think about the cohesiveness of the draft, not necessarily just the lanes, but how they synergize with the other heroes that you're picking. So for Doom, it's you basically Doom someone and static link them up right away, and all of a sudden that hero can't do anything. It can't cast spells, it can't continue to fight, it can't sit there, it has to run away, and it destroys the rest of the draft for your enemy. So it's just an example of a really, really good team fight draft. It has those characteristics where even if the opponent gets BKBs and things like that, at all points of the game, you have instant initiation, you have initiation through BKBs, and you have ways to essentially make plays in the early game with the Razor, Lich, Tiny, and Doom while the Sven farms. So, with that being said, what you're going to see is utter domination from VG in the first part of the game, which is kind of the opposite of what you guys are struggling with. You guys are winning your lanes really, really well, but then struggling to kind of work as a team to close out these games and to really transfer that. So what we're going to learn from this particular game is how to win these games and how to convert even any kind of advantage, how to get these advantages, what rotations to make and things like that, when to do them, when is it time to actually fight with your carry. You'll actually see Arteezy in this particular game take a fight early, and it's a disaster. It's exactly like what happened with you guys when the Naga takes a fight too early. Everyone dies, it looks horrible, and it's just, it was a huge mistake. But it was only done once, this particular game, and then Arteezy kind of got it through his head all of a sudden, well, okay, I remember what my job is. He continued to farm, they continued to make plays as 4, and they ended up winning the game because of it. So we're going to see this coming up. And, I just think this is really, I got super lucky when I found this game. It's the perfect game that you guys need to see. I think it's definitely going to help, and we're all hopefully going to learn a lot from it. So, one of the things that you need to understand when you're laning, and when you get these big counter picks, essentially, to the Doom, like Elder Titan and Gyrocopter, there is no situation on Earth where Doom, this hero with like 0 armor plus whatever, is going to lane very well against the Gyrocopter, essentially, and the Elder Titan. Because it's just not going to happen. This guy has boots, he has Astral Spirit, he's going to be hitting like a truck. He's going to get zoned out. So what you're going to see is this guy's solution to it, his idea. And it's a high-level play, it's an extremely high-level play, and I love it. But it's going to encourage you guys to essentially think outside the box. And that's really important when you have really, really bad lanes, is to think outside the box. It doesn't matter if it's mid or if it's top or bottom. It doesn't matter. But you have to get experience. You have to get gold. You have to do things that are beneficial to you and are going to enable you later. So the first thing you're going to see is he smokes out, and what is this ward that he places? What does this do? Can anyone tell me?
Watches for ganks or pulls, I guess.
Perfect. That's exactly it. It watches for ganks. It watches for rotations. It sees this bounty rune down here, so you have vision. He got out there first before anyone else because he was smoked, right? So you can make sure that you're going to be able to get that vision down. Nobody's ever going to see you, so it's quote-unquote a safe ward. And this is one of the most important things to understand when warding, is on the supports especially, is that you need to get down safe wards. Making sure that nobody can possibly be there first or see you by smoking is super important. He goes out there faster, he gets it down. Now this is a safe defensive ward. Nobody's ever going to be able to gank him through any of these pathways without him seeing it. And that's super important for what he's about to do. Now, the other ones that go down, like down here, what's the point of this ward? This is super far up, right?
Is that one just for mid rotations, I guess? Or
And to see the courier?
yeah, I'm guessing.
There you go. There you go. Right.
Yeah,
Because think
it's
about the
very
patch. Think about the patch right now. Korea's early game are super slow, super easy to snipe, and so valuable. If you can knock out the couriers from other people, they lose so much gold because of that and so much efficiency because they can no longer get their items. So this early rotation down here, they smoke, they get a deep ward, they're able to. It's extremely aggressive, so they can make a play down here safely, knowing that. Okay, obviously there's not 4 people. We don't see 4 people down here. Here's the Quap, here's the Legion, here's the everyone else. So we can see the rotations happening, essentially. That's the most important part for all of this. So they feel comfortable taking an engagement when they have this vision. They can actually see where everyone is. So they continue on right down here. And kind of keep this going. Doesn't end very well for them, unfortunately. So basically, as soon as this happens, what they're understanding is that there's going to be a lot of aggression down here. If there is 4 people coming, if there's 2 that are just hiding over here, the mid is over here, and then the Legion was out of position, but technically in position since everyone was behind him. What they understand now is that there's going to be a huge amount of aggression down here. That's what they gather from the ward, and quite frankly, the death too. So the response to that is not teleport away. The supports, their job is not to ensure the farm of the Doom, right? The supports early game need to make sure that the Sven has a good game. That's the most important thing for them. It's these heroes, because Razor got counterpicked. Razor's fucked no matter what. The Queen of Pain is going to have her way with him. It's just completely unavoidable, and if it's early on, if the support goes to that lane with the Quap, she's just going to get a double kill. There's nothing you can do. Doom is going to have a bad lane no matter what. There's nothing you can do in that lane. So instead of teleporting out and rotating to crappy lanes that are going to essentially make things impossible for their team, what do you do when you see all of this aggression? You try lane down here. You bring the Tiny right back. He starts running straight back to the lane. The Lich is going to be here. He's going to get into position to try and make a play happen, basically. Secure the farm of your Sven. You want to decide early on what's the most important lanes to win, what are the most important lanes to get farm in and have priority for. It's the Sven in this particular game. And this is the only lane that they win because of this tri-lane rotation. So immediately Doom understands, alright, well, I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot in this lane. So he's actually going to be cutting early on. He doesn't even bother with the first lane. He's blocking this camp so that this can't be pulled, and then immediately goes and tries to go for the second lane. Eats the range creep, and he's just going to hang out here. So what this does is basically it ensures him some levels. And in any normal game, this would be fantastic for the Doom, because by pulling this lane back and TPing out, you're going to be able to get a bunch of creeps down here. You're going to get levels from that. It's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be, especially when you have your supports down here making plays. So what Doom is doing is not laning versus these two heroes that are going to make it impossible. He is getting more out of the lane than he should have, essentially, by making some early rotations and cutting the lane. So this is super important to remember. It's that you don't have to sit in the lane. You don't have to sit here and take shit from the gyrocopter and the ET. He has boots. He's 329 to 358, so he's going to take some damage, but Elder Titan doesn't have a stun early on, so he understands he can just TP out if things get dicey. That's something that's super important for everyone to understand. You don't have to be in a crappy lane. You can do this kind of stuff, and I've seen it done in mid lane as well. If you just get an absolutely terrible lane and you have something that is capable of pulling the lane, by all means do it. Maybe you have a summon, maybe you have an extra meepo or something, or maybe you just are a very mobile hero. Maybe you got counterpicked on like Quap or something like that. Maybe they picked out like a Lina and you can't do anything to the lane. Well, you just pull the lane around, hit the jungle camp with it, and then all of a sudden you're more farm than the other person. That's exactly what the Doom's doing. He's pulling it back, he's making sure that he keeps the aggro, and trying not to die to the Elder Titan, which is just such a hard counterpick to play around. But he's doing it really well. So he comes out here, he gets both of them, and now he comes into the tree so he can't take too much damage, and keeps it around. Meanwhile, bottom lane isn't going too perfect, but honestly it should be pretty okay. Let me see the CS and denies. So yeah, Sven's at least getting something, basically, is what these supports are ensuring. Do you see the positioning of the Tiny? He goes toss first, and he comes back up here, just getting ready to toss any hero he can back into the tower. If he can do that, it's a kill. And what do? They get the toss. It's super aggressive posturing by the Tiny, but he understands the capabilities of his hero, and it's just this pick in itself, that allows them to get so much out of the lane. Tosses the guy back, and they end up getting the kill because of it. So now, as far as mid lane's going, this is the first rotation that you need to be making on the mid lane. It's 1 minute and 51 seconds. This lane either needs to get pushed out as quickly as you can, or you need to already be on top of these runes, because there's no excuse now not to. If you notice in the last patch, I made this kind of comment that the supports used to go for these runes, these power runes around the 2 minute mark. That's no longer necessary because of how close they are to the mid lane. It used to be that where the bounty rune spawned, essentially, was where the rune was, and it made it so much harder. But now, at around 2 minutes, you should always be scouting these lanes as soon as you can and going for a rune. You'll see, right around here, 2 minutes, first thing the Quap does, starts moving up north just to scout the rune. Finds the haste, goes for it. But at least she also understands that there's nothing the Razor can do to stop it, essentially, or get it first. So she gets that, is able to just run on him and harass him, and all this is only possible because she scouted that first. Meanwhile, bottom lane, let's rewind it about 10 seconds or so. Same exact thing is happening. You need to understand that now, Doom is forcing this Elder Titan to be here. He is. Because if the Elder Titan isn't here, then the Doom can have his way with the gyrocopter, and that's bad. They understand that it's still important to get farm on the gyro, and so for the Dire, this is the lane composition that they need to run, is this 2-1-2. Because if Doom gets a 1 versus 1 against the gyrocopter, it's all bad for them. But if there's 2 of them, and the Elder Titan can harass out the Doom, there's even kill potential, because of this combination, which is the priority for Dire right now. Secure the game with their gyrocopter. Doesn't matter about bottom, although their job right now is essentially not to die, which they're not doing too well. But that can't really be helped when Radiant's tri-laning. So by forcing this Elder Titan top, they're allowing the 2 supports to be bottom and have their way with this dual lane. And again, this in turn secures the farm for the Sven. This is so important to understand in your games. If you have a bad lane, or if you have a lane where you can't do anything in, like, let's say, either Tiny Doom, which does nothing to Elder Titan and Gyro, or Lich Doom, which again just does nothing, tri-lane. make a play, roam, do things. It's so much more important to be active with your time. Do you remember when we were having the discussion about efficiently using your time? And we kind of noticed that, supports didn't always know what to do, or they weren't sure how to be the most effective or where to be at the right times. This is an example of efficient play. This is an example of both the supports knowing what their job is, secure the farm for the Sven, make the lane easy for their carry, and they're doing it. They're having the most impact they possibly can by being in this lane bottom right now. And that's perfect. They're doing their job exactly how they need to. Even if they die a couple of times, which they have, the Lich has gone down once, the Tiny has gone down once. So right now, I would say the lane is kind of even just because of the kills that they've gotten. Maybe it's even favoring the Radiant a little bit. And this would normally be bad, tri-lane versus a dual lane. But it's the most efficient thing that these supports can do right now. You're not ganking a Quap. It's never going to happen. So walking back and forth between mid and bottom is a horribly inefficient use of time. You're never, ever, ever going to win this lane, Elder Titan and Gyrocopter, with the current comp. So going top is a complete waste of time. So what do? They camp bottom. They make it so that it's just the best possible game for their carry. It's exactly what they want to do. It's exactly what you guys should be doing right now as supports, understanding the most efficient thing that you can do with your time and doing it. And it works out phenomenally for them. So now, some of the things that you have to be careful, like at 3 minutes, when you see big waves coming, this is the downside to having big waves and making these plays, is that if there's a competent team on the other side, you will get punished for it, because what they can do is just dive you under the tower. Honestly, though, you guys shouldn't really worry about this too much. If you need to make a play like this, then just go ahead and do it. But yeah, you can see bottom lane, this Tiny is just making so much happen with his tossbacks. He's making this super easy for the Sven, who is getting really, really good farm in EXP right now. And yeah, they're just camping this bottom lane. It's so important. They understand, okay, these camps need to be unblocked, so they put down a sentry. They're just making rotations in here and ensuring the game for him, essentially. So top lane gets punished because of that, but what else can you really do? So, I also wanted to make note of this Legion build. Do you see the build? Even when he's against a Sven, he understands that he has two supports hunting him, essentially. So what's the most efficient build that he can do to trade? Get the move speed, get the nuke from overwhelming odds, and then press the attack for if he needs to save the CM or someone else, or himself even. Maybe the slows from Lich are an issue. He can purge those off. So, optimizing your skill build will make or break a lane. It'll either, if he went for maxing out Moment of Courage and relied on right-clicking the Sven, he would get punished so hard by the Lich and the Tiny. So instead, he goes for the most efficient thing he can, which is maxing out overwhelming odds, and really just kind of trying to trade as best as possible and get as much farm as possible. It's so important to always skill correctly and to skill in order to make your lane the easiest. You can see the Quap. A lot of Quaps in lower brackets will start maxing Scream of Pain. But one of my favorite builds on this is the 3 points in Shadow Strike, because it just makes lanes impossible. Like, if you have this Queen of Pain, for things like Razor or Tiny or melee heroes in general, maxing out Shadow Strike is so good because it enables you to make rotations, you can stop dives onto towers, and you can just stomp your lane. Things like this are what you all need to be considering. Like the Doom. A lot of Dooms go for Infernal Blade first, right? That's the kind of standard build. Or, like, you need it to harass. You need it to get things done, to trade efficiently. But he understands this lane is particularly difficult. You're not going to be trading with a Gyro when there's an Elder Titan in the lane. And so Scorched Earth and Devour are what he's going to be getting the most use of. Now, when the Doom died up here, he used his teleport scroll. And there was a huge wave. Let me just rewind it a little bit. This is another high-level play that I want you guys to think about. Something that you can do yourself. Because when there's this huge wave right here, and the Doom teleports up here to try and get it, but he ends up getting punished for it and dies, all of a sudden the priorities for bottom are shifting now. You need to be considering this at all times. What's the most efficient use of time? Because right now, it's changing for Tiny and Lich. The most efficient use of their time. No, there's only a Legion down here. The Sven is doing fine. He's out-leveling him a little bit right now. But he'll be okay to farm this bottom. So you don't need to camp this anymore. You need to come to the understanding that, okay, rotations are being made, and oh, hey, look, top lane, there's a ton of farm. Doom's about to get punished. As soon as he does, I want you to see what this Tiny does. He comes to the understanding that Doom can't be there anymore, and there's a huge wave that's just going to be up here. What does he do immediately? Teleports in, understands that he isn't needed bottom anymore. He needs to soak up this wave to get this experience, to get this farm. It's a phenomenal understanding of the game and an understanding that this is the most efficient place to be at any given time, even as early as 3 minutes into the game. And you guys need to be thinking about that at all times. Where can I be that is the best place for my team and for me? For the Tiny, even though he was stomping bottom and he can't really do anything in this lane, coming up here and soaking up the farm, soaking up the experience is the most important thing. And actually this one's kind of wonky and runs down here. But the idea is still the same. No one else can play up here right now. The Lich can't, the Sven can't, the Razor can't, the Doom can't. So he makes this teleport rotation and he gets this extra experience and farm. And it's huge. He even does this play off, which is insane to me. Like, he's able to just play super aggressively and take so much out of the gyrocopter. It's such an efficient play. It's so good. And you guys need to be thinking about that constantly. It's so important. Now, mid lane, as you can see, is going awful. Abed's just, he's dying, he's losing it, and the Quap is just having a grand old time. This is kind of the nature of counterpicked lanes. You really just gotta deal with it, unfortunately. There's not a whole lot he can do, and there's not a whole lot you can do. So really, it just comes down to pushing out the lane as much as you can, not allowing the Quap to just freely take this tower, and just waiting, essentially, until your team can come around to make a play. That's the Razor's role right now. And even though it looks really bad, he's still doing it. So these lanes are actually going really well for the Dire. And, I mean, this is kind of the issue, though. Unfortunately, they can't really do a whole lot. They don't have a whole lot of heroes that push right now. So even though they're winning this, they're not going to be getting objectives until later into the game when they can group up as 5. And you'll see that. So, let's see. What do I have done next? Yeah, so the build from the Legion, essentially, able to trade well with Artur. He's able to pressure him, get farm, do his thing. Mid, again, is just getting destroyed. I mean, I'm not going to just jerk off the Radiant team. CM is doing a phenomenal job as well. She understands that, okay, bottom lane is completely just let the Legion do his thing. Top lane, the Elder Titan and the Gyro can handle them. So what does the CM do? Instead of just being AFK or walking back and forth or leeching a lane, she makes a rotation, camps the mid. She understands, okay, the Razor is super vulnerable. It's a good lane for the Quap. I can enable my core, give him more kills if I just show up with a slow. And that's exactly what she does. She smokes in, gets a kill, hangs around, establishes this kind of dominance for him. This vision goes down, and it's just it's a great rotation. It's a great play. By just camping this Razor, it enables the Quap's game, and she can snowball, and the CM essentially is having impact by giving the Quap impact. It's just both teams, you can just tell this is high-level Dota, essentially, because both teams are efficiently moving into everything. They're doing everything as well as they possibly can, essentially. Each player understands their job. They ask themselves, what is my job? What can I do to help my team? And they do it every single time. And it's great to see. It's a wonderful example of how you guys can improve your game. So around 4 minutes, yeah, more kills going top. I mean, again, it's just a really hard lane. This Elder Titan's popping off. So, again, CM just understands there's no point for her to continue on bottom. There's nothing she can do, it's just a bad lane. And so this becomes her job, essentially, which is ganking the Razor. And for like 3 minutes, this is her lane. This is all she does. So, but bounty runes essentially, this is going to be the next rotation for the mid laner. Quap gets 6 really early. She has the rune saved up from 4 minutes. Bounty runes is when everyone is getting aggressive. The top lane did phenomenal in crushing the Radiant essentially around this timing. So instead of going back up there, the Tiny now uses his teleport scroll to come bottom. It's this 5-minute mark that really is make or break for the mid laners, because right now Razor's 4. He can't make any rotations, so this is the Quap's time to shine. She's got everything. This is the perfect rotation, because you're not going to hit 6 as 5 minutes comes up, and there's no point in most of the time rotating before then. So what you're going to do on these heroes that hit a huge power spike at 6 is wait around 5:15, 5:20. Once you've cleared the wave a little bit, you get 6, you look around your map immediately. See what's vulnerable. Right now, Quap looks at bottom, sees that everyone is way far away from their tower, and this is a no-brainer for her. This is instantly teleport bottom, get kills, because that's your job as a Quap. You need to snowball, you need to do this stuff, and this is a perfect rotation. This is exactly when you want to do it, right around the 5-minute mark. As soon as she hits 6, she hit a power spike with the sonic wave, she goes and uses it. Really cheeky play. I mean, that should never happen in your games, but it's just really cool. Heads up, understanding that he can get that deny. But still, it's like... Oh, and glyphing too. Glyphing when you're diving underneath the tower is extremely important, because you can essentially palm off the tower aggro onto a creep, not take it yourself, and then get out scot-free. Super good play, super good rotation. Just, I mean, even the cheekiness of little bit of cheekiness from Radiant didn't really go unpunished, so it was a lot better than it could have been. But still, this is just prime rotations essentially. Everyone is understanding what they're doing and how to do it. So Razor's forced to play catch up right now, and instead of rotating and doing things with his team, he understands that he has to catch up, so he just sits in the lane. Again, he gets punished, but what are you going to do? This is his job, essentially, unfortunately, is to sit in the lane and recover until he can actually do something with his team. And so that's what he's going to do. Bottom lane, again, the supports still understanding that even 6 minutes, 30 seconds into the game, their role isn't really changing very much. They're just going to be camping bottom. So they're rotating essentially around the only core who they can play with, which is Arteezy. He's got a stun, he's got levels, he's got farm, he's got his ulti now. You can't make plays with a level 4 Doom, you can't make plays with a level 5 Razor. So for this early game, the supports need to be playing around and rotating around the core that has the most impact for these plays, which will change. Sometimes you're going to have a really good mid lane, and then you're going to want to make rotations around mid, or with the mid laner into a jungle, or something. But basically what I'm trying to say is, around this 6-minute mark, when everyone's starting to hit their level 6s, the supports need to be thinking of who's the best core that I can play around. Where can I make these plays? And that's what you see from players on both teams. Sometimes there is no core to play around. Like, for example, if instead of a Sven you had a Naga Siren, then the answer is essentially, okay, stack camps, make the lane as easy as possible for one of the cores, and, do something different. The answer to this question, what is the most efficient, what is the best thing I can do with my time as a support, is not always get kills. It's not always stack, it's not always make a rotation, but it is sometimes. And you need to constantly ask yourself, what is it that I'm going to be doing? What is it that I need to do at all points in the game? So let's see. So, again, Dire, this is super important too. They're making rotations with this siege creep. So, like I was saying before, at about 5:15 is when the first siege creep is going to be meeting in the middle. If you're on the support and you're rotating with your mid laner, that's when you want to make a play. It's around the 5:15 guaranteed. That's just non-negotiable. You need to make a play around your mid laner around then if you plan on pushing. If not, if you want to make something else happen and you're the mid laner and you want to rotate, you have a rune, for example, you're moving around the map, then this 6 minute, 30-second mark, essentially, is when your carry is going to be able to move this siege creep down and hit this tower. That's when the mid laner needs to be making a rotation, and that's exactly when he does. Fortunately, in this game, he has his power treads, he has both of his nulls, he's got everything he needs for the early game, and so he's not struggling. It's not like he's got to question, well, do I farm another item, do I not? It's just instant. Like, okay, I've got all my early game items, I'm stronger than everyone else. What's the best way to maximize my input early? Move with a siege creep, get a tower. Because moving with this will enable you to put damage on a tier 2 when you might not have been able to otherwise. And so that's exactly what the Quap does. She moves top with this Gyrocopter who pushed out the lane with the ET, gets a kill, immediately rotates back, allows them to take this tower, allows them to gain map control. So Gyro continues to push with this. Now, bottom lane is a little bit more static. It's not the same. You don't have a core that can play around your carry and push out things with the siege creep. So instead of pushing, he's just going to be essentially farming it up as best he can and rotating in between the jungle, which is fine. You don't have to necessarily force these plays if you don't want to or if you don't need to. Again, right, this is essentially survival mode when your lanes go this poorly. You need to be thinking, alright, how do I extend the game as much as I can without just constantly feeding? And so the answer might be early grouping up, like what Radiant does. They make super cool plays around the supports and the offlaner in a little bit. Just comboing their skills. Unfortunately, they're not going to get this here because of the sleep, but I mean, again, it's just putting pressure and making sure that, you know, the one hero that's having a good game has a better game. The Doom immediately abandons the lane that the carry TPs to. You don't see this 2 cores farming the same lane thing. Like we saw it a couple of times in your guys' lane. If 2 cores are in the lane, you always have to think which one has priority. Which one needs farm more than the other. Right now it's Sven, so Doom leaves. He's going to make a play somewhere else. So, at around 9 minutes, though, you're going to see Arteezy. He's got his core items up, his power treads, his Morbid Mask, his Magic Wand. He's planning on jungling, because this Quap is too much of a threat. And I think this is really, really smart, too. Because even though he could lane against the Legion if he really wanted to, it does get more difficult as the Legion gets levels, but it's still possible. He can clear these waves, he can stay top, it's whatever. Even though he could, he comes to the understanding that Quap can just blink and Shadow Strike him, and he's worthless. He just gets kited out and dies. His answer to that is jungling. And so you're going to see him do that for a really long time. But because he chooses to jungle, the supports are going to do what? They're going to sit in a lane, soak up experience, and make sure that they can try and deep push it as best as possible so they're not just giving up objectives even when the core's in the jungle farming. So even if he dies here, it's fine. It's not the support's job to survive and farm. It's the support's job to maintain map control, which he's definitely doing. He's getting good wards down that aren't being scouted. He's enabling kind of a little bit more defensive of a farming strategy by putting all these wards up in their jungle. He's dewarding the high ground, making sure that Dire can't get any of this down bottom. All of this is essentially safe farm now. And then at the same time, he's defending this tower, which is super important. The most important towers on Radiant right now are the mid T1 and the bottom T1. Because if you lose this bottom T1, all of a sudden, Outpost is so much more exposed to Dire. You're not going to be able to contest the Outpost as well. You're not going to be able to contest the runes as well. Your jungle is going to be completely open. You guys need to put a priority on keeping this tower up and alive and keeping the mid tower up and alive. It doesn't matter if you sacrifice this top tower. You don't really gain anything from this, especially if you can't push in this lane. What you need to be prioritizing is your most important aspects of the map, and they do. So right now, Bottom is warded, bottom is protected. That's the job of the support now that the core is going into the jungle. And they're doing it. So let's see. Now, a little bit later, so they understand that, okay, Razor has some levels now. Maybe they can make something happen. Normally, this is a crapshoot, but somehow, just amazing usage of skills is what enables them to get this. Just comboing it up with the Doom Stomp. That to me is just insane. It's just unreal amounts of coordination, chaining their skills together perfectly, and talking with each other. Just saying, okay, the Doom sits by the T1 in between the Razor while the Tiny goes and initiates on the Quap, who we're seeing over here farm because of her skill usage on the camps. And they do it. I mean, making these efficient plays and making them perfectly is insane. You're not going to get them, I promise you. I wouldn't get them if I made these plays. But it's these things that you need to think about if you're playing this team game. Is that you don't want to make plays alone. The Doom might want to soak up a 6, maybe the Tiny wants to go make some plays with the Lich or something like that, but they understand that they can do things together so much more effectively, and it actually gets the Razor back into this game, because you'll see, the Quap was just dominating him. She's like almost level 9 to, he was what, 6 before that? And so one little slip up, do you remember the Death Prophet game? Where you're like 2 levels ahead, but then you make a little bit of a slip up, like diving under the tower or something like that. And you can see, when you give up even a single kill while super far ahead, it just brings the other team back into the game like it's nothing. This guy goes from being almost level 6 to, almost level 7 to almost level 8. A full level with just 1 kill. And it brings him right back into the game. And that's what happens when you make aggressive plays from ahead, like in the games that you guys are playing. You're allowing the other team to get back into the game by playing that aggressively. What the Quap should be doing, it's 9 minutes into the game. Can anyone tell me, what should the Quap be doing? She's going to have her ultimate in 30 seconds. What would be the most efficient thing?
Hunting the Sven.
Okay, anyone else? Does anyone else have any ideas?
I guess she could go bottom, and then they could easy kill the Lich, and then take the tier 1.
Okay.
If the Lich doesn't die here this Leech, because it looks like he's about to.
I think he's about to as well.
Yeah.
But instead of making like super aggressive plays alone, you feel invincible as this hero, honestly. And you should in most games. But instead of feeling invincible, like maybe you have a haste rune on a Death Prophet, for example, or maybe you're a Quap, whatever. Instead of being aggressive and on your own, take this lead that you have, this massive level advantage, and use it with the rest of your team. There's no reason why the Quap should be alone right now. Over here, at 9 minutes into the game, when there's a Lich down bottom, there's a tier 1 to take, the rest of her team is being super aggressive, there's free lanes everywhere. A Quap thrives in this, and so does like a Death Prophet, for example. If you take the level advantage that you have, and then translate it into objectives like a tower or something like that, it kills the enemy team. It makes it so much harder for them to make plays and get back into the game. But because of these little mistakes, it makes a game which was previously impossible, Ember Spirit versus Death Prophet, Razor versus Quap, all of a sudden, because of the team play behind it, these games are possible. And so now you can start to make a comeback because of these super aggressive plays. So once you get an advantage, do something with it. Don't just sit in your lane and wait for them to make a play. This is part of the overarching theme that I'm trying to talk about with you guys this game, is forcing the opponent to react. If you're the ones that are reacting to your enemy, you're going to lose. It's going to happen. You need to force the other team to make something happen, to force TPs in, force rotations, force people in a lane, anything. You just can't be AFK farming creeps when you have an advantage. It'll never work. And that's something, unfortunately, a lot of people are okay with. They get an advantage in the lane, and then instead of pressuring with their team, well, I'll just go back into the jungle, or I'll farm, or I'll stay in the lane and keep getting an advantage, maybe. The correct play to do in these situations is 99 times out of 100, unless you're playing something like that does have to farm is making a play with your team. And so I like the idea of going bottom, securing this tower. I mean, Lich is just such an easy kill against Queen of Pain. Top's already taken, and none of your supports really want to rotate mid. Now, at this point in the game, CM is kind of playing around her other core that she can. Gyro has a free game, which is perfect. If your carry has a free game, awesome! Leave him alone! Don't just sit in the lane with your carry. The carry needs experience too, and you can have more efficiency elsewhere. So that's super important as well. The Elder Titan kind of understands that. He's giving the Gyrocopter essentially just a free lane, full experience. The Gyrocopter's almost level 8 now because of that. And that's perfect. That's what you need to do. Don't sit in the lane if your carry has a free game. If he's being rotated on, go and help him, by all means. Don't just AFK and pretend like he doesn't exist. But if the carry is free, awesome. That's your goal's done. Your job's done in this lane now. So you need to think about what the next thing to do is. Maybe it's stacking, which he's done over here. Maybe it's rotating, maybe it's playing with your team, who knows. Maybe it's just going back and regenning so that you're ready for a team fight when one breaks out. But once you've completed your job, you need to go on to thinking what your next job is. And that's super important to do. So, bottom lane, yeah, Lich ends up dying. Now, let me see what I wrote down next. Oh, another really cool thing that I didn't mention. When the Quap died around here, and she kind of... This is some of, like, next level thinking, essentially. Even though it's wrong, it's kind of important to get in this mindset. When heroes appear out of nowhere, and are all of a sudden on top of you and making something happen, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have vision of you. And that's why they're going on you. In this particular case, they just saw the Quap's skills, and so they were able to kind of the next level thinking. But what she does is immediately tells her team, okay, I got rotated on here. I think there's a ward or some vision up on this hill. And she pings it out and tries to tell her teammates, essentially, to go and deward that. Super important for everyone to do. Not just the supports. The cores need to be thinking of, okay, well, they saw me down here, or a techie's hit me from behind the trees. I think there might be vision here. Or, you know, there's a rotation being made top. I think maybe they put vision down in our jungle so that they could see it, like anyone. Or if they're diving me here or from behind, maybe deward this spot over here in between the trees. Just common areas that people use to kind of get vision advantage to make plays happen. You guys need to be pinging those out to the supports. The supports can't be the only ones to be thinking, where's all the wards and how do I kind of win this vision war. It needs to be a group effort. So just keep these things in mind while you're playing. Anyways, alright, so around 10 minutes now, there's going to be a big rotation bot, and the purpose of it is to secure these shrines. So top lane is free, we've already established that. 10 minutes, the next big objective that everybody has to be a part of is shrines, or outposts, and bounty rooms. Again, Dota is a complete game of timing. You want to be making sure that you're taking advantage of everything as it comes up. So, in preparation for the 10 minutes, Queen of Pain has her ultimate ready. She immediately teleports bottom. All these guys are bottom. They're clearing the wave, making sure that it can't push up forward. Just making sure to enable their taking the outpost. So, they see someone down here, they act aggressive, they go forward, get a kill, now they're backing up. What Radiant want to do in this position is stop them from getting the outpost. So they rotate people in. The Lich is here, the Razor is here, and that's essentially their goal. I'm not really sure, actually, why the Gyrocopter didn't go for the outpost top. But everyone understands that if you can get one or more of these things, it's perfect. And you just want to go when you're strongest and make use of all of your spells. So this looks really good for Radiant right now, actually. And it, you know, in these games, in these particular high-level games, Radiant would probably work out with this rotation 9 times out of 10. It's just insanely unfortunate and really heads up plays from the Dire that kind of stop that from happening. So it turns out to be a disaster, and that's something you also need to think about when you're playing from behind. You don't necessarily want a team fight here. I think this is a mistake from Radiant, honestly, teleporting heroes in, especially when the Gyrocopter has just been solo up here free farming. If you are kind of at the understanding, okay, our lanes didn't go great, we're far behind, don't team fight. Don't give them the opportunity to use all their skills on you. Move into another lane or go into the lane that you think is going to be free. And so in this particular case, I would have liked to see the Radiant teleport their heroes top, and then maybe the Doom and the Razor could have had something happen with the Gyrocopter instead of trying to go on the Quap and get punished for it. So again, it's just these rotation timings, thinking about it constantly. Where can you be? When can I be there? And how can I have the most impact? And doing it. You have to do it. You can't just sit idle in the jungle around these big moments, because if you do, you're just going to get taken advantage of, essentially. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the carry's job. Here you can see Arteezy's clearing out the jungle because it's safe farm and it's the most efficient thing he can do. But instead of continuing in the jungle, he notices that a wave is coming top, and he always prioritizes the wave. If a lane's free or he sees someone TP out of it on the Dire side, he's there. It doesn't matter where on the map it is. The carry needs to be picking up these free lanes. And so if you're a carry player, don't, like, some of the best advice that I ever had given to me was play like the jungle just doesn't exist, and you will be such a better player because of it. If your first thoughts are not, okay, I gotta go from this jungle camp to this jungle camp to this jungle camp to this jungle camp, and then I'll have farm. If your first thoughts are not that, it's so much better for you, because lane creeps are more efficient, they're more gold, they're more experience early on, and quite frankly, at this point in the game, 11 minutes in, you can't efficiently clear waves in the jungle like you would creep waves. So what does that mean? Prioritize the waves. 100% of the time, doesn't matter who you are or what the enemy team comp looks like. This guy's half HP, there's a Quap in the game, she's showing, so he feels a lot safer. Gyrocopter, there's CM, Legion, Elder Titan, these are all heroes that can catch him, but it doesn't matter. He sees heroes in a lane, he understands which lane is the most free, which one is getting pushed in, and he goes to it. He's there all the time. That's so important because it allows you to get early items quicker than you otherwise would if you're just jungling or AFK or kind of walking in between places and you're not really sure where to be. If you ever have to ask the question, where do I have to be as carry? The answer is almost always a creep wave, a free creep wave. That's where you want to be. And he's doing it perfectly. Like, this is what he does. He sees these free creep waves, he's there, he kills them all, clears them as quickly as possible, rotates back into the jungle after he's done with the creeps to make the most efficient use of his time. So you can see, there's a fight going on bottom. His reaction isn't to TP into it. He's weak. He has a mask. He has Power Tread's mask. He doesn't offer anything in this team fight when there's an Elder Titan and a Gyrocopter and people who can kite him very easily. So his job is not to actually show up to these fights. His job is to farm. And that needs to be your thinking as well. On carry or mid or anyone, is what is my job, how can I do it, and then do it. Don't second guess yourself and think, well, I could have helped my teammates, or, well, maybe they wouldn't have died if I had been there. Do your job. That's the most important thing that I can tell you. That's the most important thing that you can do in a game. And to become a better player is do your job. Don't think about doing anyone else's job. Do yours. So, clears out this wave, understands that, hey, there's another creep wave bottom, it's being glyphed, and he goes for it. He knows, well, it's dangerous, but 2 people just died, Quap was showing mid, so he has a good idea of where all the real danger is, and now that skills have been used, cooldown's done, he doesn't feel as pressured. He's cleared out the wave as far as he'll go. He's not going to be pushing the tier 1 alone into this team comp. What does he do? Teleports to the next wave. Doesn't go back to the jungle. He sees a free lane, essentially, but I mean, mid is somewhat free. You see these creeps here and no one else is in there, but Razor's going to it. You don't want 2 cores in the lane, so where's the only other spot you can go to? Bottom. It's just really good logical deductions and thinking, and it's something that you guys can do right now. It's just thinking about where to go next and what creep wave are you able to farm. So around 12 minutes, right around here, I think he got spooked essentially from being top. TP's bottom, but then he understands, well, okay, I'm just kind of sitting here. There's an Elder Titan, there's a Gyrocopter, and everyone else just got up. The Crystal Maiden got up, the Legion Commander got up. So now there's 2 heroes playing off the map. The Quap is still mid, but that's 2 heroes more than he wants, essentially, playing off map. What does he do? Instead of being down here and kind of taking this farm, which he wanted to originally, rotates back into the jungle. Because his job is not to be there for team fights or fight people when he's weak. His job is to farm. Also, if you have to prioritize the jungle, again, this is not optimal. This is not what you want to be doing as carry. This is the best play he can make. And his best play to make right now is not to die farming creeps. It's not to farm these tiny jungle camps. What you want to be prioritizing, if you can early on, is ancient creeps, because they give you a ton of gold. It's almost as much as a whole creep wave, essentially, and more experience as well. So if you can, don't prioritize these little camps, especially at the beginning. Prioritize the ancients. This is just essentially damage control on carry. You're having a bad game. You don't have anywhere safe to farm. So now you are relinquished to the jungle, and that's where you're going to go. No hesitation at all. Understands that this becomes, as the second that this becomes unsafe, that Legion and Crystal Maiden respawn, he's gone. It's just instantaneous movement. So again, now, do you see what happens when RTZ gets caught up in a team fight? He's not ready for it. He's only got an Ogre Axe and a mask. This is bad. This is really, really bad. And this is what happens when you get forced into something before your power spikes happen. Instantly dies. And now this is a loss of efficiency, essentially. Yes, he gets the kill on the Quap, but again, this is... all of this, everything that you're seeing right now is damage control. It's making the best out of a very, very, very bad situation. But this is a good example right here of why you don't take fights sooner against a team that's forcing them. You want to be splitting up the map. You want to be kind of farming creep waves. You want to be avoiding all of this that you can if possible. Because if you don't, you just die. That's how it is. These guys are so much further ahead. They've got all of their early game spells and stuff. Not necessarily items, although the Gyro does have a Drum of Endurance. But they have all of their spells. They're making use of them. And you can't compete with that as a carry. And it's not your job to compete with that. So keep that in mind when you're playing. Is that the nice thing is, even pro players make this mistake of being there too early and being where they shouldn't. But it's nice that we get this opportunity to really see at every single level why this is punishing you, essentially, making these early rotations as a core when you shouldn't be. It's just, this is the way of Dota, essentially. If you fight without being ready, you will die, you will lose. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you recognize how to avoid it, the quicker that you can move past that and get to the next level of, well, what is my job if not to fight? It's to carry the game, basically. And in this game, fortunately, he realizes what his job is, and he does it. And he's able to carry the game. It's amazing. It really is. From being in this position to kind of being able to put the game on his shoulders. Now, a really cool thing that you might have just seen right here is that this middle kill happens. Right now, RTZ feels safe. He's farming these camps. He's pushing out top, rotating into the jungle. This is safe farm. Now, as soon as Razor gets initiated on and dies, what is he thinking of? Even though he just stacked this camp, he's not thinking of taking it. He's thinking about getting out and finding more safe farm. because they're coming for him. So he stops mid-creep wave, runs around the safest way possible, and you can see Lich circling all this out right now. Look where the safe farm of Radiant is. All of this is warded. All of this is de-warded. The only ward Dire has is this deep high ground, which gives nothing on the carry. No information at all. So Lich is pinging this out, essentially. Drawing a map saying, this is where I've warded for you. This is my impact early on. Take it. And this is a great example of supports having huge amount of impact with their wards. They're enabling this safe farm. This is defensive warding. This is defensive posturing. De-warding it all with sentries, making sure they can't see you, and then placing these wards afterwards. This is impact. This is support impact. And it's allowing this Sven to continue farming. If this wasn't here, he wouldn't feel safe in this blackness. So, but even though he has free farm down here, again, prioritize the free wave coming in always. Every single time. Doesn't matter. And then he's psychotic anyways and decides to go top because he can, I guess. I don't know. This is kind of insane to me, but I'm sure he understands it better than I do. You see two people up here, well, maybe this becomes safe and you can be a little bit greedier. Let your other players play down bottom. So, again, look at where everyone's postured at the 15-minute mark. When bounties spawn, you want to be there. Doesn't matter who you are, everyone is putting in their the littlest bit of impact. Even the Sven. The Sven comes up here just to support the Tiny, just in case something happens. He can toss out a stun. Everyone else is fighting over bounty runs. It's these rotations. Every single 5 minutes, you need to rotate. I can't stress that enough. Every single time, you need to either set an alarm if you can't do it by memory, or have someone dedicated to reminding you about this. These are your rotation times. It cannot be spelled out any clearer. Throughout the last few years of game patches and things like that, this whole team play has been centered around objectives at a certain time. Bounty runes were the first iteration of that. Outposts came afterwards. I'm sorry, power runes actually were the first iteration of that. Bounty runes were the next one, and now it's outposts. So at these 15-minute marks, you need to be making rotations. Every single time, every single person. This is where you should be. This is where you should be. This is where you should be. That's where you should be. And you need to do that. There's nothing else more important than getting these 300 plus gold items for free. It's just absurd how much they're worth. So, again, when you're playing from behind now, you're not looking to... So this is a good example and an exercise of warding posture for the supports in a particular game. You don't have the heroes to gank right now. You're not going to be invading their jungle or playing into a team that's stronger than you. So the solution is to put up defensive wards whenever you can to ensure safe farm and make plays inside of a lane, essentially, when you have vision. So you need to establish control. Supports. This is entirely for supports. Every single game, you need to establish control through vision, through your positioning, over a certain part of the map. Right now, Radiant feels like the part of the map that they need to establish control over is mid and bottom. They need to make sure that this doesn't get invaded and that they don't get taken over. So the wards that they use are super defensive. They're trying to put down sentries everywhere. They're warding up these certain areas that everyone's going to have to move through to see it, to avoid it. It's perfect. Now, Dire, on the other hand, what do? Well, they don't have to play safe. There's not a single ward in their entire jungle. All throughout it, Dire don't prioritize it at all. They understand we have the vision advantage because of outposts. That's super important. Like, even if it's not coming up at the 10-minute mark now, you still have to go and get these outposts just for the vision advantage. But what they're doing is not warding up their jungle for safe farm. it's understood that they can essentially have that already. What their warding posture is, now when you're playing from ahead and when you need to close out a game and you need to get pickoffs and stuff like that, is aggressive. You want deep wards. These were placed when they were when they killed the Razor immediately, forcing Radiant out of their top jungle, and the supports, as soon as they get kill, as soon as they have space, what they're doing is moving deep into the jungle and establishing vision, getting more control. This is how you close out a game. This is how you capitalize on leads and capitalize on kills when you can't get any more objectives. If you can't get this tower in mid and you get a kill in mid, your thoughts need to be, what's the next objective I can accomplish with this kill, with this space? A lot of the times, like I was saying in the previous games that we went over, it's warding. You can get down these super deep wards, force kind of D wards in defensive areas, put down sentries, make sure that they don't have vision, take away the map from the other team, and then put these aggressive ones down so that you can go deep and attack. That's what Dire's trying to do. That's what all of their wards allow them to do. It's giving them control over the lanes, giving them control over, okay, we can see now where they're rotating if they leave the base. They can't leave the base without us knowing. That's super important. That's how you play from ahead. You get this aggressive posturing just from the supports. No one else is doing it. I mean, bottom lane is a little bit pushed up, so you see the Legion and the Elder Titan kind of coming out here and playing aggressive, away from their towers, away from the outposts, yes. But the real caveat, what's really enabling Dire to play aggressively and continue to play aggressively is the support play. Putting down these sentry wards, putting down these deep, aggressive wards. Does everyone understand that? Kind of how you can have impact no matter what. If you're playing from behind on the Lich, defensive. If you're playing aggressively on the CM, offensive. Does everyone get that? Because I remember there was a lot of questions about warding in the last session.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think honestly our big struggles as a team, just generally, is that when we have our item timings and like kind of our movements around the map, I don't think we adequately utilize like smoke ganks and like ward placements and all that, like when we're in the position to do it.
Sure.
So I know Zach was talking about it, how like we'll call for a smoke gank and then someone will be like, oh, I'm like 200 gold away from an item, and then like we'll like split up again for like another like 50 seconds to like go farm more, but it's kind of like the wasted opportunity of that moment when we could have like went right there.
So right now I think I can't really see it, but Dire's been using their smoke ganks essentially to just continually bone mid. And they've been getting a lot out of that. So I don't think any of them are going to have a smoke on them. Oh no, Elder Titan does. So one thing that you'll see, and to avoid that whole conundrum of, alright, well, should we smoke? Can we smoke? Can we, like, let's call it smoke right now, and then kind of just dilly-dallying? Always buy smokes. Always have at least one in your inventory. A, so that it can regen in the shop, and B, so that you can have it at a moment's notice. And then, if you do want to go, you can go. But that's also another important thing. So, you see, Lich has a smoke, Tiny has a smoke, Elder Titan has a smoke. All of them have smokes. They're all utilizing them for one reason or another, and they're all kind of holding on to them just in case. But now, to your point of playing around item timings, you need to understand when to smoke. It might not be an item timing. Like for Dire, for example, it might be a skill timing. When Sonic waves on cooldown, we go. When cooldown's off of cooldown, we go. Like when we have freezing field, all of our ultimates and stuff like that, this is when we make a play. It doesn't necessarily have to be an item, but in a little bit, we're going to see a perfect example of when you do play around an item on Radiant. So let's continue on just a little bit. So mid lane, you'll see playing around skills, and this is one of the best parts of this Razor Doom combo, is that if you see this guy right here, you just dump spells into him, there's nothing he can do. He can't sit there and right-click you, he can't do anything, he has to run away, and eventually he dies. Yes, now, Radiant gets punished pretty hard for this, but what does this accomplish? This stops the carry from farming. So now your late game has been marginally improved by allowing your carry to farm and theirs to die. And now the Doom, what does he do? He doesn't just sit there and attack or fight or try to kind of use his spells or anything like that. He wastes time. Runs as far away, even though it's hopeless, he starts running back to his base. So this is an example of making a rotation with cooldowns, obviously. Because Doom was off of cooldown. He doesn't have any items, but he's making use of his Doom in the most effective way possible. And that is stopping their carry from farming, enabling them to have a better late game. Razor doesn't have any items, but his job is not to farm up an item, it's to make this play with his team, essentially, and make space for the carry. And that's exactly what they do. Even though it looks bad, again, they're accomplishing what they want to. And immediately, this is super cool. Immediately, as Doom dies, and they have this understanding, all the heroes are over here, what does Lich do? Plant sentry wards, D-wards. He's gotten all of his spells off, but he understands that he's mostly safe here for now, and he can do this. So, again, taking advantage of chaos, a team fight, and doing what you can. It's always important to do as a support or anything. Now, the first item that we're going to see Radiant play around is going to be the BKB, right? That's going to be really the major turning point for this Sven. That's the point where, well, I can't get kited anymore. I'm not going to get slowed down by the CM or the Quap or stunned up by the Gyro or the Elder Titan. All of a sudden, I can actually have impact in fights. This is the first power spike, and this is the first thing you guys need to think about when playing around an item. It needs to be something that has impact and actually gives you a power spike. It can't just be like a Yule Scepter from Razor, like, okay, Razor got a Yule Scepter after he was farming the jungle for the last 5 minutes, now we go. No. It has to be something that, like, counters the enemy team or gives you the kind of go-ahead, this, okay, wait a minute, we're ready to team fight now. That's when you play around an item. If you don't have that yet, don't try and play around tiny items. That's not your power spike. What you need to do is play around your cooldowns, essentially. And that's what Radiant's doing, and I think that's super cool. So, as soon as this kind of, all this is said and done, now, we still have our TZ prioritizing these waves, but as soon as he clears out these, he understands that, well, okay, wait a minute, people are starting to gum. So, what does his team do? He kind of got caught out here, and the most optimal play that you can do, unfortunately, this isn't perfect. He shouldn't have been below the T1, honestly, but what he's doing is trying to farm. What his team needs to do is enable him to farm. So he's forced 2 teleports up top. The Legion teleported up top, the Crystal Maiden teleported up top. You know that for certain. The cooldown on their teleport scrolls is 80 seconds. If you can somehow get away from this and get down to the other side of the map as soon as possible, you're going to have 80 seconds of uncontested farm, essentially. And you need to do that. You need to make those rotations as a core player who's farming. So, to secure that, what does his team do? The Tiny sees his Sven's in trouble and essentially sacrifices his life for him. He kind of makes this rotation top with no intention of anything but dying. He's not going to get any kills. He's not going to accomplish anything. He's going to die. But what this does is it frees up the Sven to teleport to another lane and to take farm. And he does. It doesn't go bottom because it's already pushed out super far, but he's making the next play that he can make, which is go into the jungle and work bottom. Razor was in mid. He doesn't go and take over mid. He's running straight towards the next most efficient thing, which is Ancients. And then he's moving bottom because he understands that the CM and the Legion can't be there for the next 60 seconds or so. So all of this, all of what they're doing right now, this kind of stopping them top from killing RTC, this rotating bottom, this making them move around the map, they're even blowing smokes for this to kind of try and run across the map to catch him. All of this is delaying the game, which is so important when you're behind. You are forcing these rotations by doing this, essentially. Even if it doesn't work out well for you, to force something like this is so important. So, again, this is really cool positioning from the Lich as well. Supports, if you're ever wondering what position to be in, most of the time, if your core is farming and you're trying to watch them, your position is to be a meat shield and be up in front of them to catch a gank. It's so good that the Lich catches a smoke gank instead of the Sven. In team fights where you want to get off your skills mostly, it's going to be behind your cores. And then if you're an initiator, it's obviously going to be on top of the enemy. So consider your positioning, supports, no matter what time of the game it is. That's what you need to do. And this essentially saves his carry. Even though he dies, it's a good death. That's what you need to understand. Not all deaths are bad. This is good. This is really good for the Radiant. Being in position to break that smoke and catch this, essentially, for your carry, is a positive. This kill means nothing. This whole team rotating down here and doing this isn't accomplishing anything. Although, what does it accomplish? They get a kill, they get space. What does he do? Deep ward, immediately. This is how you ward. This is what you do. As a support, as a 5, it doesn't matter. If you have wards on you, this is how you place them. This is the perfect example right now. You get a kill, move deeper, put down a ward. That's how you put down an aggressive ward. Move even deeper than the kill you just got. Because Radiant isn't going to be responding to this kill by walking blindly into them. If they do, you're just going to team wipe them and steamroll over them. Radiant's going to respond by running away, by going to the other side of the map, by playing somewhere else. So take advantage of that on the supports. This is so important. This is how you ward. Now, so the reasoning behind all of this right now from Radiant, essentially, is to extend the game. They understand they can't take a team fight, so what are they going to do? Pressure the other lanes. Keep making rotations. Keep farming. Wait for this power spike of Black King Bar. You're not going to make anything happen before that. If you try to fight without the BKB on Sven, you're just going to lose. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You need to understand that if you're playing these farm-oriented heroes that need items, you don't fight without those items. And that's exactly what he does. He's waiting for his items to happen. Even though his team's dying, they're doing the best that they can to delay until this pivotal moment. So now, we're going to look a little bit forward into the game once he gets this BKB. And this is around 20 minutes. So it's a little bit late, obviously. You really want to be getting your first item, real item, a little bit sooner than that. But what do? What would you do? If your carry gets a BKB right now, what would you do?
BKB is a fighting item.
Damn right.
In this case, pressuring the bot outpost probably. It's about to go off in 1 minute, and
perfect.
Maybe a good opportunity.
Perfect. See what time. Look at the time. See when the next objective is, and then smoke for it. You have a big item, and it's just this is exactly what you want to do. So, Tiny has his blink. Sven has his BKB. You have essentially the tools that enable you to take a team fight now. So you need to... This is an item timing. This is a power spike that you guys can take advantage of. This is when you should be team fighting now. It's not before that. It's not when your skills are on cooldown. When your skills are on cooldown, these guys are going for pickoffs, essentially. When they get items, they go for team fights. So now, let's see. I want you guys to observe the positioning that Radiant's going to be doing in a few seconds. What it's going to be doing is Doom and Lich are going to be behind Tiny and Arteezy. There's this core with BKB who's essentially going to be the strongest hero on the map, and your initiator. They go in front. The people who need to follow up with like the static link Doom combo or the Lich getting off his skills and spamming stuff are always behind. So that is going to allow you to take team fights. If you get caught out, that's an example of responding to someone's stimulus. You're responding to rotations. You're responding to initiation. And that's bad. You need to be the ones to either initiate or stop an initiation in its tracks. So look at the positioning. They're smoked up behind the strongest hero, the one that can't get bursted down, basically. The one with the BKB. Tiny's right here, Doom's right here, Lich is right here. Razor is a little bit far behind. He was a little bit late to the party, but that's okay. It's not his job right now, being as weak as he is, to be in the front. And so, tanky heroes, initiators, in front. Everyone else needs to always think about their positioning in these team fights. So, another thing that we talked a little bit about, so this is the 20-minute mark, everyone's posturing around this objective. Another thing that we talked about a little bit in the game that I reviewed with you guys was skill usage. There were a couple of instances where people weren't really using their skills in the proper way. Maybe a Death Prophet was like a crypt swarming before using her E or something like that. I want to play this like even slower than slow, just so that we can all see exactly what skills are being used on who. Because the one that stuck out to me the most as a really high level play was actually the Razor. In this situation, who is the Razor going to be worrying about putting out the most physical damage?
I mean, it's definitely the gyro, right? Like, you definitely want to prioritize that.
Anyone else? Are there any other answers, or were we agreed with the gyro?
Could it be the Legion?
It could, maybe. Maybe in some of your games it will be a Legion. In this particular game, though, it was the gyrocopter. And so, what this Razor does, he has the opportunity to use his static link, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't use it. He understands who he needs to use his spells on and saves it for them. It's so cool to see. I want to play this super slow, just so y'all can see it. Sven's job is initiating, hitting these heroes, starting a fight. He's going to save his BKB until he really needs to use it. He's not popping it right away. Tiny is using his spells, gets the Quap. Doom needs to go on the Quap. Who's going to be most affected by not being able to use their spells in a team fight? It's either Quap or Elder Titan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Legion doesn't care if you Doom her. She already popped press the attack. She's just going to walk it off and you're going to waste a lot of time, while the rest of the team has all these AoE abilities, these kind of tools to dismantle you in a team fight. So instead of blowing the Doom on the first target that he sees, Doom, as well as the Razor, understands who these spells need to get used on, and they save them for that. Either it's the Quap or the ET or whoever else it might be in your game. It's the gyrocopter a lot of the time. Later in the game, once he has items, you need to Doom the gyrocopter because he's going to do more than the Quap. The Quap is just going to blow up. But right now, at the 20-minute mark, you're going to try and use your spells on the most effective heroes, and don't blow them on the first person you see. Because if you Doom the Legion, this team fight is over. You lose. But to have that understanding is going to advance your play so much, knowing who it is ahead of time that you're going to use your spell on and saving it for them. It's so important. You need to be practicing this at all points in the game. So Sven's just the meat shield in front. Doom is now getting onto the most important target that he can, and now they're going forward onto it. So Razor uses his Yules on the CM. Again, the Razor is here, but he isn't using his static link. He doesn't see the gyrocopter, so he's not willing to sacrifice this yet, because he knows what his role is in this team fight, and it's to static link the hero with the most physical damage. Uses the Yules to cancel spells, perfect. I mean, this is exactly why you don't Doom the CM, basically, is because all of her really gnarly spells, the freezing field, can be disabled by something as simple as the Yules. But it's the coordination in these team fights that allows them to do this as well. You all need to be at the understanding, okay, we're not going to blow 3 stuns on one person channeling. One person will save their stun, their Yules, for a specific spell, Freezing Field, or the Echo Stomp. Other people are going to be designated like the Doom on the Quap, or the Tiny Toss on the Quap, or Avalanche onto the Echo Stomp. You need to think about these things and communicate with your team ahead of time, every single time in these situations. So this is where communication is absolute key, and where you guys need to be talking to each other, saying, this is how a team fight is planned out. This is how we're going to do this. It can't just be random. Because if you guys go into this with a vague understanding of, okay, well, the CM ult needs to be cancelled, that's when you start using skills on Doom or Yule's or Avalanche and Lich's stun all on the same target, and it reduces your effectiveness tenfold. So communicate with your team, say what your job is, say what you're going to be doing, and save it for that. The Razor hasn't used his static link, and in a couple of seconds, when this guy shows, what does he do? Gets in between him and everyone else, beelines it, and uses his static link on the gyrocopter. Saved his spell for what is most effective and used it. That is phenomenal. That's perfect. So, a problem here, though, is don't overcommit. Radiant doesn't have any... All of the Radiant's vision is back here. Which is why they were able to get all of their spells off so efficiently, so well. If all your vision is back here, your team is back here, don't be that one person that just goes up into the front. Like, I think it was the Legion Commander before that got caught way, way up here. Over here by the rest of the enemy team. And then everyone just kind of like tried to song in, but it was super awkward, and then didn't really work out, and everyone gets team wiped. So, Doom walks up into this fog and ends up failing. You need to communicate and listen to a shot caller, essentially, on what to do. You can't be making these solo plays by yourself. Maybe this is called. Maybe this is something that someone said basically, okay, Doom, you need to get on top of the Elder Titan, stop any Echo Stomps, like, it's okay if you die. But in most of your games, you all need to be on the same page, have coordination, and not overcommit. It's one of the easiest blunders to make at all skill brackets, and the rule of thumb, essentially, is unless you are 100% confident with your team and chasing, don't go up high ground, and don't go into lack of vision, black areas. So the rest of the team, however, sees kind of this opportunity over here, right? Well, the CM's... Everyone's kind of run off. We've already got the Quap. CM's isolated. This looks like a really easy kill. What do? All run down towards it. They're ignoring this up here. This Doom is going to try and get away eventually, but they're staying as a unit, essentially. And this prevents the BKB Gyro from just walking up onto the high ground. This is great self-control from the Gyrocopter, actually. He doesn't walk up the high ground to try and save his CM. He, like the Radiant, they see the overextended kill and they go for it. You guys need to be doing this at all times. If you're overextended, it's not always bad. Sometimes you're canceling out an Echo Stomp or doing something, zoning other heroes, doing something important. It's not always bad being out of position like this, but don't chain feed, essentially, or continue to go out of position with all your other heroes one by one. Take what you can get. Take what's within your means. And that's exactly what they do. So both teams actually do. And it's really cool to see. Now, they understand Artur's going to be getting the CM. So what do? They salve up. They're getting ready again. They see an opportunity with spells. They're at the understanding, okay, wait a minute. All these guys are now grouped up. We have AoE CC, right? We've got Frost Blast. We've got spells. We've got Razor Ult still. We've got all of this. This is such a cool thing too, actually. I never even saw this before, but now that we're seeing it, holding on to those healing salves later on, especially in these like annoying team fights, just to regen up and allow you to get back into it, is super cool. I haven't really seen too much of that, but that's super awesome. It's interesting. Now, what's going through their head, I can tell you exactly. Even though the Tiny's low, he's got both of his skills on cooldown. The Gyrocopter has nothing, no BKB or anything, and they can make something happen. Normally, in all of your games, this is a complete no. I want to see the fog right now. Let me see. Yeah, look at this. As soon as Doom dies, all your vision is going away. So normally, in all your games, I would say, don't even try this. This is insane. They're going up onto the high ground, into 3 heroes, and they're separated from the carry. This is an overextension most of the time. If you're anyone other than EG, this is an example of an overextension. But the way that EG handles it is just impressive. They establish vision with Plasma Field. Another way of establishing vision is to go up onto the support, up into this tree right next to the Razor, and place down a ward. That's another way to establish vision. Put a ward on the high ground. That's something you can do as a support to make team fights better. But what they do is get this Plasma Field for the vision, gives the Tiny the ability to jump in, avalanche combo out, and toss back onto someone else. Just a super cool play with the understanding that they're weak right now. We have skills, and we can get away with this. It's a very, very advanced understanding, and to me it's interesting because CM was the free kill, but everyone else understood, okay, only Sven has to go for that now. She's low enough that only the Sven can handle that. Let's try and get something else if we can. It's insanely difficult to do that. I'm not going to lie to you. It's incredibly difficult to have that understanding of what can we get extra, but it's something that you should keep in your mind. How can you pressure an advantage? What are these split-second opportunities that you can get something, essentially, out of nothing? So I would say 99% of games, everyone would have just backed off, gotten their little kill on the offlaner and on the position 5, and went on their merry way. There's a free wave mid. Position 1's going to head for it immediately after. Everyone else can kind of go back, establish control, reward this place, and stuff like that. There's so many things you could have done. This is just an example of an incredible play, I think. And it's something that you guys can do if you really, once you develop the confidence to do that kind of stuff. So now, before I move on, does anyone have any questions? I really should be doing this a little bit more. But does anyone have any questions so far from what we've covered?
I can't think of anything so far, but no.
Yeah, I think I'm good as well. I have some stuff for the end, but that's more about, I think, like, game sense more generally.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, me as well.
So, right around now, there's no real objectives, unfortunately, for Radiant, right? There's no T1 tower up here. There's a T2, but, and they have a catapult as well, so they could pressure this. But there's not really anything immediate. Unfortunately, this outpost was already taken for the 20-minute mark. So what would you be doing to try and maximize this play? 4 people are dead. What can you do right now, immediately, as a support?
Get down vision.
Yes. Perfect. Establish control. Now, you're coming to the understanding in this game. Wait a minute. We're able to play aggressively now. How is the vision going to change?
It's going to be less defensive, more aggressive, getting wards up in their jungle, seeing where they're going to be farming in the jungle.
So 21 minutes. No objectives are taken because of this team fight, unfortunately. Razor's trying to push out as fast as he can, but he's only 1 man and he's pretty far back. It's going to take a while. So
Mid could have maybe been taken.
Maybe mid. Yeah, you're right. Maybe mid. And that's kind of what Tiny is trying to do, pushing out the wave and kind of getting that down. But look what the Lich is doing. They understand what the next objective is. They understand if they take another team fight around this area, they can't do it right now because everyone's spawning again, but they're ready for this now. They know this is an objective. Roche is an objective, and they're warding around it. It's as valuable as a tower. It's as valuable as taking a team fight around outposts. Roche is another objective you guys need to have kind of memorized when we should take it, when we should fight around it, when we should be pressuring with Aegis. And right now, As soon as this BKB comes out, as soon as they take one good fight, this is EG putting pressure onto this Roche pit and getting ready to take it. This is an example of making a play and not responding to something. They're forcing this issue. They're planning ahead for what they're going to be doing. They're doing all of this, and it feels like, unfortunately, Dire, even though they had really good lanes, they're just responding to this right now. And they're losing this momentum that they had from the lanes. This is how you guys kind of lose momentum, is by not doing these things that higher level players are doing. And it allows this a lead or a landslide to kind of get toned down. And you lose games that you shouldn't by not continuously looking for objectives. So this is one way of closing out these games, essentially. Now that you're on equal footing, or even better, quite frankly, is always pressuring these objectives, planning on what to do. You see, even though there's a tier 1 down here that, quite frankly, should have been taken, and right here as well, they're at the point in the game where these are not as important as Roche. You want to play around the most important objective. It might be in your games a tower. It might be a tower. It might be a T2. It might even be racks this early if you're stomping a game. But you need to always think about what objective you're going to be playing around and how can you continue to take advantage of those objectives that you're able to take. So right now, after a good team fight, after taking vision up top, after establishing this kind of control and getting a little bit more aggressive, not super deep, it's not like they're diving any kind of shrine or anything like that, or they're diving behind towers. They can't really get into the jungle right now, but this is aggressive. This is the most aggressive thing that they can play around, and they do it. That's awesome. That's insane to me. Like, that they always have this presence of mind to think about the next objective that they're going for and always play around it. It's just the strength of a really, really strong team to just know their job as 5 and always execute it. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit out to 2240 when the next power spike for them comes through. He gets a Chrysalis, like, as little as it is, it's another item. They took a good team fight. What do they do as soon as he gets another little power spike? It's not even little, but what do they do as soon as they get another power spike?
Look to rumble.
They're rumbling. They're making stuff happen. They're making a play. This is so important to do in your games. It's not reacting. It's not these people are getting an item, getting a power spike, and making a play. They're forcing this. Now, Dire is the one that has to react. They're not in a perfect position. The Gyro isn't done farming. He's actually TPing out. Nobody has their items. They aren't hitting a power spike. Radiant is incredibly stronger than them right now. And what do you do when you're stronger? Smoke, try to take an objective. Every single time. And it's a good play. It's an easy play that you can do in your games, and you should be doing it. It's just an example of hitting a power spike and using it. Toss back into the stun, gets a kill, and now they're going to go right for an objective. What is it going to be? Let's see. Did I write it down? No, I haven't. But, so, essentially, what their solution is, alright, well, we got a kill on the ET, keep on pushing lanes. Look for more things. They see a Crystal Maiden in mid, they make the rotation mid all of a sudden. People are showing, they want to get this, so this is actually the objective that they choose. The mid T1. They get a kill up here, onto the Elder Titan, he can't be in a fight, so the objective that they choose to go for is a T1. Opens up Roche, opens up their jungle. It's snowballing now. This is snowballing. They come, get another kill, immediately take down the tower. They don't even wait for the creeps. There's no back door. Why should they? They just immediately go for the tower, force out the glyph as fast as possible, take it, and move on to the next objective. So right here, now, let's see. 1 more minute. It's actually going to be a super important time. So I think everyone right now is just trying to establish a little bit more control over the map. Because what time is it? And actually, this was on the old patch when outposts were every 5 minutes. So it's even more important, but it's still good to make the same rotation. What are you doing at 24 minutes? Or at 4 minutes? Or at 8 minutes? 9 minutes and 4 minutes. What are you doing?
Set for outposts and bounty runs.
Outposts and bounty runs. 9 minutes, 4 minutes. Every single time, doesn't matter. Everyone's going to be pushing out waves, so you have control over this area, because when you push out the waves, you get vision. The enemy doesn't have vision over here, and you can play around it much easier. Pushing out these waves constantly, especially around these times, is super important. What does he do? Prioritizes the wave even more than finishing off this. He sees a wave right here that's free, goes for it. That's just telling you his priority for these creep waves. I feel like I apologize if I'm repeating this stuff a lot, but my goal is to drill it into your heads. How important it is to have these priorities straight. So, and also the other thing that comes out at 25 minutes now, that you guys got to be thinking of. How do I get... Oh, I can't get rid of this, damn it. Well, so the other thing that you guys need to be thinking about at these certain timings is neutral items. 25 minutes is the next one, right? So, what's Arteezy doing? It's one of the few times where he's not prioritizing lane, where he's not fighting with his team. 25 minutes is when you start clearing jungle camps to try and get your 3 items as quickly as possible. And that's exactly what they do. Each team starts clearing out these camps because you have to play around this timing. This is another timing, and so you take the objective, which is neutral items. Arteezy gets a freaking paladin sword, which is perfect for him. It's a new power spike. What do they do as soon as they get a new power spike? This is insane. As soon as he gets another item, they don't even wait for, like, they have Mindbreaker on the Razor, and they have Paladin Sword on Arteezy. As soon as they get those 2 items, smoke up and go. They want to rumble all over again. Like, it's just, it's impressive. It's them perfectly taking advantage of these power spikes. They don't even know what items the other team has. It doesn't matter to them. They're just going to go and make something happen out of this. So, for this next team fight, I want the supports to see what happens. Look at this. This is an example of using a smoke, even if you don't find someone, using a smoke to put down deep vision. They're looking for something. And even if they don't get anything out of this smoke, you can always do something little, like putting down a ward. This is a safe ward. This is an example of a safe ward, because it is impossible for the Dire to see you. Put it down, unless they have a ward and a sentry ward there already. In which case, if they deward that ward, well, now you know, okay, put a sentry down, this is dumb. Like, they have vision there, obviously. Just logical thinking when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, 27 minutes is right around when the next team fight is going to be. You want vision for that, especially this late into the game, around the mid-game to late-game area. The most important thing that supports can do, besides getting their skills off and saving people with items, is getting vision down. Because it enables your team to do exactly what they need to. You remember? Saving the skills for everything? Saving the skills for the right person, rather. I'm sorry. Getting initiation off. Finding who it is that you're responsible for. It's only possible with deep vision. And so you need to be getting vision down all the time for any of this. Now this, I don't expect any of you to do this, but this is absurd. He got a BKB off within the blink duel time for the Legion Commander. That is insane. That's like a reaction time and a half. I can't even comprehend that. I don't know how the hell he did it, but he's from smoke. He just saw a Legion pop on him and initiate, and instantly understood, I need to BKB. And he does it within a fraction of a second. That's insane. I don't expect any of you to do that. I just want everyone to marvel at the fucking majesty of that. That's just...
Alright, Brandon.
It's
Those
amazing.
are the standards you have to live
Yeah,
up to.
those are the standards that you have to live up to to be a professional carry. It's blink duel from smoke, and you need to BKB. The only reason he lives this long is because he BKB in that millisecond. That's insane. Like, I mean, if he didn't do that, there's no way you can take this fight. Like, you need to just back off and cut your losses. So, look at this. Perfect. Gyrocopter as an axe, a BKB, drums, all of his skills up. Like, what does the Radiant do? They take away his ability to be potent, to do what he wants to do. He's BKB'd already, and he wants to go into the fight. All these skills are saved for this moment. Now the priority is not the Queen of Pain. The Tiny is taking care of the Queen of Pain right now. The priority is who's going to dish out the most damage. Duel's over. There's no point. Like, it's so good. Once duel's done, you can ignore this hero. There's no point in wasting spells on him. What are the heroes you can go on? Elder Titan, Gyrocopter, Crystal Maiden, which is like, okay, she's going to get off her spells no matter what, so don't even bother. So, Elder Titan and Gyrocopter. Out of those two, who's the most effective to use your spells on? Static Link and Doom? Boom! Gyrocopter. Instantly. It doesn't even have to be said. It's just this understanding of who to use your spells on. And this is what you need to do, is have an understanding beforehand of who and why you're using your spells on these people. And look at this combo. It's insane. Like, when you draft these things, like Doom Razor, you can just walk them down, and there's nothing anyone can do. Having these draft combos in mind is always great for pocket strats and things like that. If you're not sure what to draft against a new team, for example, have a preset draft already. Just, copy it from a pro team. Watch a few games, see absolutely broken combinations that happen in team fights and mid-game, just copy them. Pick up Doom Razor. Like, it's good, I promise. No matter what the game is, it's good. It could be against a Broodmother or something like that. And if you can just run her down with Doom and Static Link, what's she gonna do? Nothing. So, find these combinations. Find these little pocket strats that you guys can get in drafting, because they're potent, I promise you. And they make all the difference. So, what they're doing is picking off that one hero that really makes things difficult. And now, they're gonna go for more. They understand that they're strong, maybe a little bit too deep, but they're kind of keeping this all going. So, unfortunately, Razor goes down, but, I mean, that's totally worth it. You're diving their carry, making sure the carry can't get anything no matter what, and then afterwards, look at this. Look at this. Team fights won, 4 people are down, there's no other immediate threats in the area. Instantly, every single person's focus is objective. Beelining it. Every single person. That's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to waste time. You don't want to lose out on precious seconds by dilly-dallying or looking around or doing other unimportant things or thinking about what objective am I going to play around next. You have to have the understanding of, we're bottom, we just won a team fight, we need an objective bottom. What is it? Tier 1. Potentially Tier 2. Get it. You need to just go and just get that objective immediately. And that's what they do. It's so good. And this is all stuff that you guys can do yourselves. This isn't like a 0.01 second BKB that I don't expect anyone to ever actually do if they're actually human. These plays are what I want you guys to get out of these sessions. This, take a team fight, objective. Team fight, objective. Over and over and over again. Prioritizing. What are you prioritizing? What are you getting? What are you doing? This is what I want you guys to understand and what to get out of this stuff. Making these plays, forcing the enemy to react to you, to your timings, not theirs. You don't want to be surprised by a BKB or a blink or something like that. You want to be doing the surprising every single time. And the way you accomplish that, positioning by the supports, covering your carries when they're not ready, tanking ganks that are taken at unopportune moments for you, and moving around with your spells, with your items instead. if you can neutralize all of these, like, timings, these better timings, rather, I should say, that enemy teams will get over you. You're not always going to have perfect games. No one does. But if you can neutralize their better timings by letting a support eat the gank, it makes it so much better for your entire team. And so these are all things that you can do. And these are all things that you should be doing. So, now that we're really in the swing of things, now that we're kind of getting into mid-late game, this is like 30 minutes right now, the next objective is going to be coming up, which is outposts and bounty rooms. Everyone rotates, everyone is going to be sticking up in squads, essentially, for this stuff, if they're not just blindly tossing skills into creep waves to move them forward, essentially. You can see the posturing. Supports are playing behind their carries. They want to ensure that nothing bad ever happens to them. That's their job. Clearing jungle camps efficiently if you can't initiate. If you're an initiator and you can't initiate, do something with your time. Don't just stand around. Clear camps. Push out lanes. This is the most mobile hero. It's the hardest to kill. She still has to play around someone. That someone's the Elder Titan. The Elder Titan's job, make sure that the Quap doesn't die. CM's job, make sure that the Gyrocopter doesn't die. Everyone's playing around in squads. This is how you have to position in the mid-late game. Unless you're some hero like a position 4 Tiny who can just afford to kind of push out these important waves. Because they are important waves. It's right around the 30-minute mark, and this is what you should be doing. So this is another example. This isn't necessarily using an item timing, but this is an example. Oh, actually it is. He's got an Aghanims. But this is also an example of taking a fight right before important objectives. 30 minutes. So, shoot. I mean, the last 3 smokes that we've seen Radiant pull off have all been BKB, Chrysalis and Paladin Sword, Aghanim Scepter. So it's all centered around these items from your core, essentially. And that's perfect. That's optimal. That's what you want to do. So, Elder Titan is the hero that can stop them from Roshing. This is their condition for getting Rosh. You have to kill the Elder Titan. You can't do Rosh if you're just going to randomly get 5 seconds stomped and lose all of your base armor. So, they meet the condition. What do? Support D-wards, gets high ground vision, instantly into Rosh. This is an example of taking Roshan perfectly. You neutralize whatever it is that's stopping you from doing it, and run right back in. This is a game-winning ward as well. And supports can do this. Anyone can do this on a support. Again, every single time you get a little bit of space, killing a hero, put down a ward. Every single time, because it will win you games just like this one just did. It allowed them to blink onto the Gyrocopter, get all of their spells off on him, take him out of the game. Instantly forces 2 buybacks. This is perfect. This is all Radiant. Dire is responding to Radiant's aggression. They're responding to the plays. Dire isn't making a single play right now. No initiation is being done, and it's all thanks to the supports. This is not, even though the cores are shining right now, obviously, this play, everything happening right now is because of the supports. This is the kind of impact that you can have. And this is the kind of impact you should have. But it's just very mechanical thoughts, methodical. If I get a kill, I establish vision over the area, if it's important. And I do. If I need vision over a certain area, I get it done. If I have to sit behind a carry or a core player to let them farm, I do it. If I need to gank, I'm ganking. It's such good play, and you guys can all, this is all things that you guys can do. So, 30 minutes, people are still doing this kind of stuff, and this is even a little bit sloppy, although everyone's grouped up now for the Dire, which is good, if they want kills and stuff like that. And they're gonna get them. because they're grouped up around 30 minutes, which is super important. So it's a little bit of a misplay out of Raiden, actually, because they're not grouping up now for these super important times. Oh, and you have to understand, if you lose an objective or a kill this late into the game, it's going to snowball. You can't allow Roshan to be taken under those circumstances. Lich knows that, buys back instantly. He couldn't afford to die there, so he buys back. You can't give this up. Now, everyone is rotating, because they understand, uh-oh, Dire just took a kill there. They're going to go into Roche. You contest these objectives any way that you can. Just absolutely perfect. That understanding that, well, alright, they're going for an objective now. Lich instantly knows what he has to do. And it's dieback, essentially. You can't give up an inch in these scenarios. Otherwise, if they get Roche for free, then your game is 100 times harder. And so, by not allowing them to do that, you are doing so much in this game. They're not allowed to regroup after Roche and push your base high ground with an Aegis on Gyrocopter. The game's reset, and now they don't have any buybacks on all of their important heroes. Now you can reset, go back, and make more plays. Just look at this. It's just selfless playing. Tiny knows what his job is so well, and it's to keep that Sven alive. To keep your core players alive. Tosses him back and dies for the team. Just, it's a good death. That's a really good death. Even though he gives up dual damage, it doesn't matter because the Sven doesn't die. So you can be doing this with Force Staffs, you can be doing it with Glimmer Capes, you can be doing it with Lotus Orbs even. But thinking of ways to save your carry is the support's job, essentially, and everyone's job, technically, to save the most important hero at all costs. It's a super high level play. It's something that's extremely difficult to pull off, especially if you don't have the right hero, but it's something you always need to be thinking about. So, we're going to skip ahead again, just a little bit. Just positioning. Positioning, please. Lich is out here de-warding, making sure that this is 100% safe for everyone. This is how you position on support. This is what you do late game. Your death doesn't matter. A cores does. You can't let the cores get initiated on. Position 4s, pushing out the lanes, like, this is good. This is really, really good. And that's what you should be doing. So now, Doom's marking, alright, we gotta do something about all this. Like, this needs to stop. This blackness all over the map. So what do? Position 4 is pushing out. Lich is in front. This is so important. If you're not smoked up, you don't have vision of an area, the support needs to go first. That way your cores aren't tanking ganks. Like, it prevents the Dire team from making a play. That's what this does. That's what this positioning does. Is it prevents plays from happening. It's so good. So now let's see. 35 minutes in is when the next real power spike for Radiant comes into play. We're going to skip through all this. So, they smoked once with the Crystallis and the Paladin Sword. They smoked once with the Aghanims. They smoked once with the BKB. Next item comes out. 35 minutes. Everyone's down here for all of the outposts and the bounty runes. There's an item now on your carry. What do? Are you guys seeing a trend?
Yeah.
You're going to start making plays down here.
I think I'm seeing the pattern here.
I think there's a little bit of a pattern now, too. Soon as their strongest hero gets an item, smoke. Every single time. If early game, your skills are the most important thing and you need to make space for your carry, smoke. Carry gets an item, mid gets an item, whatever, smoke. Need vision, smoke. It's So important to do. And this is the answer. This is the answer to your question. When do I smoke? How do I smoke? This is it. This is perfect. This is perfect gameplay. This is what you should be emulating. So, and it's easy too, because you have a pattern. You have a pattern that you can follow for all of this. And instantly, Lich, what does he prioritize in that slot after he pops it? Ward's vision. That's what you should be doing. Because as soon as a team fight breaks out, you want to have complete control over it. And that's what vision does late game. So Dire's completely lost their momentum. They haven't done a single play like this in forever. And they're responding completely to Radiant. It's just, even though Legion is getting out, these are all responses, and he's eventually going to go down. Like, do you see this? Radiant is making a play, forcing these rotations, these BKBs, all of this, and they're getting away with murder. And it's because Dire isn't making a play. This is what I'm talking about by forcing things. Getting an item, smoking, forcing a kill, initiating on people. Do not be the team that gets initiated on constantly, especially while ahead. When you're ahead, you need to be making these plays and not just sitting back and waiting for these plays to be made on you. Because that's how you throw a game. That's how you lose. So, yeah, I mean, 20 minutes now. It's been 20 minutes since the Dire has done anything remotely aggressive, essentially. As soon as that BKB got bought up on Sven, it was just, it's the Radiant show. They're doing everything that they can, essentially. So now Sven's a beast, like, and they're going to be moving into more, since Roshan isn't an option, they're going to start high grounding soon. Because there's just nothing that the other team can do. I mean, this is insanely deep, but like, they're forcing stuff. And Dire's just too scared to react without their offlaner. Plays are being made all over the place. This vision is absurd. Like, I mean, you remember how Dire was really prioritizing these super deep wards, and look at how it's shifted now. It's defensive. It's around Roche. It's kind of in this weird same place, which I don't particularly understand, but they're trying their best to essentially react to the Radiant, and it's never going to work. So, I mean, Quap gets taken down, Legion gets taken down, there's a mid T2. What do they do as soon as they find a couple of kills? Objective. Immediately goes to an objective. Now look at this. I want everyone to look at this particular way that they're positioning now. So, remember when Tiny and Sven were the ones that were in the front? Doom was kind of sitting back and Razor was behind, Lich is behind. Now Doom's kind of coming a little bit forward. He's got some initiation of his own. He's got a Blink Dagger. He's got the gem. He's got all of the tools needed to get off another Doom or a War Stomp on these people. So he's going to position a little bit more forward. The Lich, position 5, is always going to be behind them in these team fights, in these high ground pushes. You want to be able to get your skills off on your carries. You want to be able to get your items off. You want to be able to have impact any way you can. So they're positioning back. The Razor doesn't feel particularly strong this game. His job is to go on whoever Doom is, so he's also playing a little bit further back. Maybe if the Razor was like actually balling this game and like going out of control, he's the one that's in the front. So this will adjust. This positioning will always adjust depending on what game you're in. You guys need to think about that, though. It needs to be conscious when you're thinking of positioning for this stuff. High ground pushes. Look at this. Look at when they're timing their high ground pushes with the 35-minute catapults that they've been keeping alive this whole time by not pushing down mid and instead looking for kills. So these catapults are available, they get the kills, they get the T2, and now they're pushing, they're in position perfectly, they've got their initiators up front, their tower hitter is right here, and everyone else behind them. And this is what you need to do to close out a game. They're looking for opportunities right now. Like, what can you do as Dire? Your offlaner's still dead, you're getting pushed in, and... I mean, mid doesn't want to... Quap doesn't really want to buy back right now, because she can't do anything if she buys back. Without the Legion, it's a 4v5. So now, because of this positioning... Look at this. They found their opportunity, they doomed up the gyro, and now they're going in. Now, honestly, this is a mistake. And can anyone tell me why this is a mistake?
On who? On the gyro or?
No, on the Radiant. Can anyone tell me why Radiant is making a mistake right now?
Because Legion's gonna be up in 4.
Okay. Any other particular reason that stands out to you?
They didn't really need to go any deeper. They had enough space to take the racks. I don't think they needed to push it.
Perfect. There's no reason to dive. Do you see this tower protection? This is, let me find it. This is an extra 5 armor on every single hero. This is 175 damage per attack on every single hero. Times 2. There's absolutely no reason to dive behind a tier 4 when you're not sure if the Quap has buyback or not, because there's really no reason for her to have blown it yet. The Legion is getting up right now. He's coming off of his death timer. There's absolutely no reason to dive. People throw games. This is still winnable for the Dire, by the way. People throw games all the time. I can't tell you how many games I've thrown by diving the fountain on like a Meepo at 20 minutes when I'm supposed to be taking racks. I can't tell you how many times I've lost games that I shouldn't have because of this. This exact play is wrong. Do not dive when you're in an advantage and you have the potential to push down more. There's no reason to force this here. And you're going to see... Sorry, go ahead. I'll pause it.
When he dove in, he immediately popped the BKB when everything was already off. Like, he got the Doom, he used the Stomp, he used Infernal Blade, and he pops BKB, even though any further...
Yeah, there's no hard CC, there's no threat, essentially, to you yet.
The only danger was the CM Frostbite, but even then you just back out at that point. You did, like, Gyro can't push up, he's doomed, so CM can't defend against.
That's a really interesting point, actually. And that's something else that you have to take into consideration. The rule of thumb for when to use a BKB is 0.1 second before you're in range of a disable. That's it. If there's a Lion in the game and you're the initiator, you want a BKB 0.1 seconds before you blink into range of anything of his. It's the same for if anyone has a Hex or if an Abyssal is in the game or anything like that. If you have a BKB, you want a BKB and use it 0.1 seconds before you are anywhere near the range of the enemy. In this particular case, you're completely right. There was no disable and no reason to use that BKB that early. There's no instant disable besides the Legion. He wasn't up yet. The Elder Titan Stomp wasn't happening. And so, I don't know. I think he could have saved it a little bit longer. You're right.
I feel like if he held on to it, then he wouldn't have been pushed into a position where he had to then commit, because he already used the BKB, and then the Razor used his BKB.
Yeah. It's just messy. It's just messy. Do you see how messy this is? Diving behind a T4 for absolutely no reason and feeding away 3 kills to buybacks because... No reason. There's no reason. It's just sloppy play. Don't do this. This is the best example that I can give you. This is a pro team fucking up for your entertainment and your benefit. Don't dive. It's almost never worth it to dive. It doesn't matter if you're diving a T2 or a T3 or a T4 or the fountain. Don't do it if you can avoid it. It's almost 99% of the time never worth it, and 99% of the time you'll just get punished. Just like professionals do every single day. Learn from them. Do not dive T4s. Don't do it. I can't emphasize that enough. It's just silly plays like that that will cost you games. They will cost you games, especially in your pubs. If you dive like that and die as 3, it will cost you games. I promise you. So, now coming up on 39 minutes, what if I said every single 4 minutes, what does everybody do?
Runes and
Runes and outpost, 9 minutes, 4 minutes. Every single time. What do they all do? Grouped up as 4, 39 minutes and 30 seconds, all coming up to the same exact spot. This guy is out of position. He really is. I don't remember if he's actually going to get punished for it or not, but there's no reason to have this quap down here in a dead lane. With no vision at all in this entire section of the map, there is no reason to play this on your mid laner. Absolutely none. Be with your team at this point in the game. Yeah, and she recognizes it too. She gets out of there, so that's good. But again, it's just securing that outpost on Dire, doing what you possibly can around the 40-minute mark. So power rune at even intervals. So at 10 minutes, you're going to want to prioritize the power rune. You're going to want to prioritize the bounty runes and the outposts. And actually, it basically goes in the opposite direction as far as priority goes. First, outposts. That should always be your first thought. The experience gained from them is just too ridiculous not to. It needs to. You need to be absolutely 100% sure that you'll get that outpost before you think about anything else. Next is the bounty runes. You get the bounty rune that's closest to the outpost. Your next priority is the one that's further away. Lastly is a rune, but honestly, late game, the mentality behind what they're doing right now is, well, what if we get a DD? You know, we kind of have to go right now. We bought back on people. What if Gyrocopter gets a DD right now? What could we do with that? Potentially march down mid or take Roshan. I mean, if there's a DD that spawns here and you don't get it and Sven gets it and he wipes you and takes Rosh with it, game over. So that's kind of the mentality, is that they're trying to take away this this chance of the enemy team getting a DD right next to Rosh. So, let's see. Yeah, everyone is right around now working as a unit now. We're in late game. This is now 40 minutes. The new items are coming out. Everyone's farming the jungle together. Let me emphasize this. 40 minutes in, new items are coming out. Everyone farms together. You don't want to get picked off in your jungle while farming these things for no reason. And the first team that gets all 3 of their items wants to invade the other team's jungle to get kills on them. So, at this power spike of 40 minutes, when these new items are coming out, everyone moves as a unit in late game, because if you don't move together, you're going to get picked off and die, and that's disastrous right now. You can't allow that to happen. This is late game team play. This is what you need to do. Do you see how both of the teams are like this? Now the Razor's feeling a little bit more confident. He's almost got a Satanic. He's kind of willing to go middle to front line, essentially. Tiny's tanky as fuck. 57 armor. 3.2k HP. That's insane. He is in front of his team always. He's the initiator. Sven's right behind him. Doom's right behind him. I mean, it's the same freaking thing. And then Lich is behind everyone. So now, when you're moving in a unit like this, smoke ganks are much less potent, because all the people that you want in front are in front. You're already in position. As long as you're moving like this in a unit, nobody's going to take you by surprise. If they try and run up on you, like from behind, you're moving this way. That's super important. And so now, look, as they get up here, they all reposition. Razor's in front, Doom's in front, Lich is behind them. Even though he was moving from this side, over here, and then that was the behind, now he's readjusting himself to get behind his team. Perfect. This is, again, late game positioning. What are they doing on the Dire? The exact same thing. CM sitting on the high ground, where she's safe. Her carry's in front. The Initiator's right next to him. The Elder Titan's sitting behind everyone. Quap is off doing her own thing, which is like, whatever, but it's the same principle. It's going to be the same in almost every single game of yours, and this is correct positioning. This is the example you want to take from. Wherever you are, whatever draft you have, this is what you need to do. So about 42 minutes. Okay, 41 minutes. So they got their 3 items, right? They got, I believe it's, no, that's a T3. What's a tier 4s? Tier 4, Witless Shako, Havoc Hammer, and then something on the Razor? No. Okay, so they only got 2 of them. But apparently that's good enough for them. So around this time, this is the point where people are going to be farming the jungle. So what do? They feel confident in their ability to take a fight. They don't need the 3rd item, apparently. And so they smoke up. There's no power spike as far as items go, but they've been dominating for the last forever, so they can afford to use these smokes aggressively, especially when... What's the buyback status? None on the Gyrocopter, none on the Quap. And they know this. That's another high-level thing that you guys can be doing. Supports, Okay, quick little note for supports to do. As far as buybacks go, you need to take down the buyback timer. Every single time. It's going to be the same for every single person. I believe it's like 8 minutes for buyback. So you just record as soon as you see a buyback, make a mental note, record it after the team fight. Or just hotkey. Hotkey for me, I'd bind Y for, and then up and to the right for current time. And then you can just quickly just spam out a current time, and then you know, okay, well, I put down this particular time, this was the buyback, 8 minutes from that. And then you'll know exactly when they have buybacks up afterwards. For Roche, it's going to be 5 minutes after he dies, or the Aegis is picked up, is when the Aegis expires. 3 minutes after that, so 8 minutes in, is the first potential respawn. 11 minutes in after that is the last potential respawn, when he will for sure be up. The supports need to be taking down the timings for Roche. 100%. It should automatically, as soon as it goes down, plus 5 minutes, Aegis expires, plus 8 minutes, Roche is back up, plus 11 minutes, guaranteed Roche is back up. That's another thing you guys need to be doing on supports. Just another tiny thing that can make a huge difference late game. Knowing the timings behind buybacks, when you're free to get pickoffs and then push the base, and knowing timings around the Roche. So let me slow this down just a little bit. So CM is here, not as important as the Gyrocopter, right? You don't want to blow all of your stuff on the first person you see if it's the support. This is how you tank ganks, essentially, is by getting people to use their skills on you as the support. It would have been great if the Doom and the Razor went on this CM, but they're holding everything. They're making use of all their skills as much as possible and continuing on. So they're going after the Gyrocopter, they're going after the Elder Titan, right? Remember what we said, because I mean late game, things like this Elder Titan is super annoying. So they ended up going on him, they got the kill on him, and now at the very end, the least important hero is the one that you prioritize last. Every single time. Just ignore the CM. She's not going to do anything. If your objective is to kill the Gyrocopter and the Quap, numero uno. Because they don't have buyback. That should be your number 1 priority. Second priority is stop their initiator's blink. Ignore him after that if he doesn't have any skills that he can use reliably. And go for the other heroes that you can find that can use their skills on you to make your life hell. In this case, Elder Titan. He also had a gem. Really good to prioritize him over the CM. And that's exactly what they did. They saw the Elder Titan, killed him first, go back for the CM afterwards. There's no point in killing the support Crystal Maiden first, getting nothing out of it, and allowing the rest of their team to escape. So, immediately upon getting those kills, what's the next objective in their immediate area? Shrine. Take the Shrine. Right away, opens up Roche. So they can do it if they want. I don't believe they choose to, though. I think they're going to continue to push this. They've still got Doom, so they're willing to use Doom on the Gyrocopter. He doesn't have any buyback, and they know that now. This game's looking over. CM just diebacked. The Gyro just diebacked. You don't really know about the Elder Titan. Or at least they don't. But now they're feeling confident. So, again, please, just in your games, don't do this. Don't dive. There's no reason to. Especially these 2 stupid heroes. They can do nothing to stop a push at all. If you're as confident as EG are right now, go for it. Why not? Because this can win you the game even faster. But honestly, it's wasting time when you could be taking objectives top or taking them bottom or anything, or just forcing the GG. Like, there's no reason to be diving like this, really. But what ends up happening is Legion ends up overextending, diebacks and goes down, and now they can just do whatever they want. The game's over now, essentially. But even in something as little as this last team fight, the mentality was always, okay, we took a team fight, objective. And that's what you need to do. That's what I want you to learn from this, is that your mind always needs to be thinking of what can I do next. There should never be an idle moment, and you should always be having a priority set in stone from before you do anything. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have now. Does anyone have... Oh, sorry, one more thing. The Vision. The Vision saw the advancing of the Legion commander here. Vision's, like, the supports are just having huge impact and getting these kills. The only reason all this is happening, that they were able to kind of back up and then come back out and feel confident, is because they had vision of all of this at one point. And so, be the support that gives your team that vision. Be the one that kind of enables them to use their skills. Because if Doom has the Doom on off of cooldown, and Gyrocopter has buyback and is walking up right here, you see him, you can blink on him and get that. That's game changing. But if you don't have that vision, well, the play isn't there. So, late game, I think people really underestimate the kind of impact that supports can have when they're playing really, really well. And mostly it's because they don't see what it is that the little things that they're doing can have profound effects. But yeah, that's pretty much it now. Again, vision, smoking at the correct times, showing you guys exactly what it is, timing your movements, and making the enemy react to you. Alright, so now does anyone have any questions?
So like in short, like the main cycle that you kept talking about, where it's like the timing, smoke, gank, like repeat. The general formula, right, is wait for a timing, whether it be like an item timing, a cooldown, or like an objective, like shrines or not shrines, outposts.
Yeah, outposts. Sorry, I call them shrines all the time. I'm
Right.
still trying to...
Wait for a timing, smoke gank, either like get a pick off, get a team fight, or at the very least get up some like aggressive wards.
Yes. So the priority for that should be essentially objectives like towers, racks, Roche, more kills, and then map control. So as soon as you get those kills, you're looking at an objective. If there's no objective, you're looking at more kills. If there's no more kills, you're looking at establishing dominance over an area with vision. But it's
just basically always like seeing like what you can get.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like every little interaction, you guys need to prioritize getting as much from it as possible. That's the difference between high-level players and low-level players. It's that maybe a kill happens, but lower-level players won't capitalize on it as much. And the higher-level player is going to be getting every single little thing. That's the thing that you can change right now, is understanding what it is you can get from these kills and doing it in your games every single time.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's a good, like, I guess, like, baseline formula to follow, at the very least. The timing, smoke, repeat sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm sure I have something. Let me just I'm just looking at all my notes here. I should
All
have
good.
wrote
Yeah,
down more
take your
questions
time.
as we were going. I'm sure there were some that came to me.
Actually, I told you guys that I would show you that Naga trick, so maybe I'll just load that up while...
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, while you're doing that, while you're looking through your notes. So I don't know if it works for Manta Style. I don't think it does. I think it's too quick. But basically, as far as this goes, any kind of ability that has animation, like a long one, that and gives you invulnerability, you can queue actions through it. So I'm going to swap to int treads right now, press Q, and then press it again, and swap to power treads agility. Every single one of my illusions has the agility one, but I used the actual skill on the int treads so that it uses up less mana, and I still get the benefit of having all agi. So, just to reiterate, the timing for that is basically Q, click, done. So, I'm pressing C, Q, C, done.
Mm-hmm.
Q, C, done. Now they're all on strength. Q, C, they're all on in. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, I see you.
So that's a super tiny just efficiency play. Now, as far as control groups go, what I meant by those is like doing things like this. That way you can just completely, and it's better actually when there's only one illusion. Let me restart this. I can show you exactly what I mean. So at like level 1 in the lane, when you're playing a hero like Naga Siren or any kind of illusion-based hero where you have to confuse someone, it's always good to have control groups that are built around deception, essentially. So when I do this, I'm moving all of these heroes, these illusions and everything independently, so you can never tell which one my main is. Even from just the beginning, when I first do it, a lot of players will just move their hero first, even if it's just a little bit. And it'll tell them, it doesn't matter what you do afterwards or how much micro you do, it'll tell them which one it is that's real or not. So, if you bind your control groups to doing things like, this is 4, this is 5, this is 3, moving them all at once, then you can start getting into really faking them out. Like, I told you when Bounty Hunter or Beastmaster is in my lane as Naga Siren, it's the best. Because if the Bounty Hunter wants to Janata the main one, if he doesn't get any gold. So what I'll do is 4, 5, and then pick one and move them around and then bring them all back like that. And it confuses the hell out of people, because you're moving the illusion now as if it was a main one. And they have no idea which... It's just introducing an element of confusion that's extremely important when you're playing these heroes. You need to think creatively as to how it is you can do these kind of things. Like, one of my favorite things for PL is microing the strong illusion in Doppelganger. So that my hotkey for it is 5 for the strong Doppelganger. So, oh wait, well, my hotkey's actually messed up. Never mind. So this is a strong one. Press 5 on him. Going to redo that.
Yeah, PL is stop a block, you can't do the tread switch.
No. Instant ones you can't. Anything with an animation cancel you can. Just moving that first instead. And then you can move them all like this. Fake out. It's so easy to fake people out, especially at lower levels. And it's just things that you should be doing. If you select the key that you have bound for these kind of things ahead of time, you can actually select it while you're still invulnerable. So setting proper control groups is extremely important. It's the difference between winning and losing a lane. So as far as the carry player, you need to be on top of that. It doesn't matter if it's like... it really doesn't matter what hero you're playing. You need to have control groups that allow you a broader option of play, essentially. Like, for example, if it's Terrorblade. If you're playing on a Terrorblade and you want to micro your illusions, or even a Meepo. Like, Meepo especially, particularly, I want to show you this because it's my favorite hero. But, like, if you're playing any kind of hero that requires control groups, or really should have them, you want to set as many advanced ones as you can. So, like, I'll do an individual one, E for the first one, R for the second, D for the third, and then 1 for my main, and then 3 for all of them, 2 for everyone else, things like that. 6 for illusion runes, 6 for manta, and then 7 for illusion runes. Just ways to, I can always control everything and make things as confusing as possible for everyone else. It's super important to do that, and it takes a lot more work and a lot more practice, but it'll improve your game a lot.
That's very cool.
So this is going to be based off of something you were saying really early on the night, just because I was going through my notes. But I remember the one thing you did mention was the Radiant Safe Lane Tower being something that's really important to defend, because then you lose access, or you lose any easy access to the bottom outpost.
100%.
Does that shift slightly when you're on Dire because there's still a shrine there?
So, like anything, it depends. If, for example, your top lane gets absolutely stomped and there's nothing you can do about it, you want to prioritize saving this bottom tower right here, and the mid tower, obviously. The one constant is your mid tower is always going to be the most important tower. Doesn't matter what game it is or what you're playing, mid tower is always going to be your most important tower. You don't want to give that up if you can. But like anything, the side lanes can adjust. Unfortunately, Radiant is a little bit more important than Dire, because this particular tower up here does almost nothing. Like, you can put up a ward right here or a ward on this high ground and be completely covered. Like, there's nothing that's ever going to happen to your carry after that. It doesn't give you any more control. The only thing it does is make defending this outpost harder. So, what that means is, unfortunately, if you can look at it right here, this tower only gives you control over this little slice of the map right here that I'm circling right now. This tower down here controls everything from here to the tier 2. Do you see how much more open the map is as soon as that goes down? It allows them access into this entire jungle. That's why it's more important. And it becomes almost impossible to defend this tower, because if this tower is still up on Dire, you're never going to get this on Radiant. They have a 2-second TP for their entire team to come and contest you, and you don't have anything. You don't have any way, especially now that the shrine is gone. So you have no way of contesting this outpost without this tower. And again, like we were talking about timings and everything like that, you want to make it so that you can hit your timings as easy as possible. This tower does that, and that's why it's so important on Radiant. Dire, a little bit less so. You can play around either one pretty equally, and you're not really too bummed out if you lose one or the other. It doesn't really matter which one, you can play around it. Really, the deciding factor is going to be which lane you lose worse. If it's top lane, you're going to want to save this tower. This one becomes infinitely more important. If bottom lane gets pushed in, this tower becomes infinitely more important. And that mostly has to do with the shrines. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on how the lanes go and which lane is getting the most pressure.
Well, and the thing, what makes Radiant T1 top the least important tower now is the shrine. You're going to have a shrine right here to teleport to at all points of the game, practically. And so you don't have to worry about losing this tower at all, really. But Dire, that's not true for the Dire bottom. Dire has one up here, so it makes contesting this a little bit easier. But really, it's just these bottom towers that are the most important right now for both teams. And you want to avoid losing them if you can. And, again, mainly has to do with the fact that outposts are a fucking thing, and the fact that there aren't any more shrines bottom. That really... When the shrines were here, these towers were still important, but now that the shrines are gone, they are critical, these two towers. And so you want to try and defend them as much as possible, really. Although, again, it's kind of less important for Dire, really, as long as you keep one of them in the early game.
Gotcha, makes sense.
Anything else? Sorry, we're actually. Oh, holy crap! We're actually getting pretty late into this one.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would take that long. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. It's all good stuff.
But yeah, it's all like meaningful information.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's 100% what I'm trying to do is just give you guys all of this. My hope is just that you translate that into your games, practice it. It's harder to practice all of these concepts in pubs, unfortunately, because it's not the same game at all. And
Yeah, I mean, thinking about timings, which is a big thing. I mean, there are definitely things that we talked about tonight.
oh sure, and I mean you
Yeah,
can
that's pretty
translate
easy.
you can translate timings into your pubs, no problem. You can create tempo depending on your role, or you can just straight up tell people, hey, it's 4 minutes in, let's start posturing for bounty runs, or it's 9 minutes in, it's time for outposts, we got to make a move. So these are things you can like relay to your team pretty effortlessly and easily, just to have an impact on your pubs. But yeah, as far as higher concepts go, like playing around items and stuff like that, don't expect to have your team really, in pubs at least, do that stuff. That's the kind of stuff I need you guys to work on together as a team.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well.
Alright, I'm sure it's getting late and everyone wants to do their own thing eventually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless there's anything else,
Pretty tired.
I guess we'll probably see you again after our first match.
Cool. Alright guys, sounds good. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you. I think the first
Yeah,
match
thank you
is
so
this Saturday.
No,
it'll
next
be
week.
the 11th. Yeah.
It's next week.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I didn't
Cool.
finish my sentence.
Yeah,
It's the
send
11th.
me, tell me what time it is, and what game it is, or who you're playing against, and I'll be sure to check it out. Maybe we can do some analysis on it afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's actually one thing I'm wondering. I think we talked about this on Monday. I'm wondering whether it would be better to do analysis like immediately afterwards or like a few days later. 'Cause
I would say,
thinking-
I would definitely say a few days later.
yeah,
'Cause
that's what I was gonna say. As well, 'cause
everyone
I think-
needs to come into this with an open mind. And if you're like pissed off at a really bad loss and you're like, well, they didn't do this or they didn't do that,
Yeah,
it's super
that's
hard
what I
to talk
was
about that right after a game. It's
kind of
really,
frustrating.
yeah. I would really suggest kind of taking a little bit of time, having a breather, and then we'll talk about it objectively afterwards, like maybe a day or two after, once everyone can kind of think and collect themselves. But
that makes sense.
and that's the same thing. The same thing goes for wins as well. Like if you guys end up winning a really easy game, for example, it's easy to like in the moment be like, oh,